are doing amazing work. But again, the fire basically passed through this area, but still a lot of hot spots.
Good morning.
And with those winds, if the winds
We're
change,
burning
those hot spots
up.
could become active fire again.
We're
and that's
burning
the reason
up.
why they've got so many firefighters out there, and there's so much work still to be done out here.
Is there a particular challenge for firefighters there on the ground when it comes to those tight roads in canyon country when they're trying to fight the fire from the ground?
Oh, most definitely. We've heard them in the past, and while the evacuations are going on, firefighters are actually making their way up through those roads. A lot of times it gets very tight in those areas, but those roads out here, you have to remember, Malibu still is, this still is very country-ish out here.
Yes, it is.
But those roads, they are wide enough.
Yes, it
everything's
is.
up to spec. Everything's up to code. And right now, the sun is coming up. I'm going to actually
bring
up the map again.
They've got a lot of.
It's still a very hazy picture. I'll try to clean it up the
help
best
out
I
there.
can.
Good morning. We're having a fire.
We're
having a fire.
Hey,
hey, butterflies.
Homes were saved. The
hey,
fires
sweetie.
made their way through this area.
I know. They scare me too.
Hot spots nearby, but that's
because they just come up so fast. Like it's kind of crazy how fast fire moves.
Right up in this
and you can get stuck real quick. Nothing to play with. Especially in these areas where there's like really tight roads, small roads, country. It's very hilly over there. It's a lot of small roads. It's bad. It's not easy. But
there were a couple of homes that were burning. Still too much smoke for us to see down there. And that's the thing. We're just talking about it obstructing our view. Firefighters and people that are down there in that smoke, they're dealing with it. So this is still a very active fight, and you got hats off to those first responders.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. We got fire crews on the ground from Orange and Ventura counties and the city of LA are joining LA County firefighters to provide the on-the-ground.
Hi, Kathy. I know. There you go. It's so scary. It's scary.
This Franklin fire. We'll check in with you in just a little bit.
And if you are just joining us, 6:30 on this Tuesday morning, we do have breaking news and wall-to-wall coverage of this Franklin fire, 1,800 acres and more burning right now.
When I was little, our new house almost got burned and we lived in New Jersey, Pine Barrens. Oh, God, that's scary. That's scary.
What things are looking like where
Hi, Kathy. Sending love to Malibu from NorCal. I know.
Hi, Jen. Still watching those active flames.
Crazy. That's not far. I mean, it's probably like a half hour from me.
Earlier who were actually helping those fire crews.
I'm not in the mountains.
These areas
I'm in the city. I'm a city mouse.
That's why they have a lot of these roads closed.
But I have been thinking about moving, not to Malibu. I can't afford to live in Malibu, but I have been thinking about moving to like
between PCH and Malibu Road. Firefighters multiple agencies
like Agora Hills or something near that, Calabasas or something, just to be out, not in the nice ritzy areas, but in the normal, in the normal parts. Do I look terrible? Does the camera look different? Did I do something different? Hi, Neil. How are you? I had a great Monday night. We had such a great space. Oh, Brent Allpress came to my space, you guys. Oh,
assisting here, and you're looking at some of the firefight right now
whoop,
with
whoop.
firefighters on the ground there, strike teams from multiple agencies.
Just want to check in with this.
Firefighters and
okay, I look clear. Well, clear's not always the best. I'm good, Neil. I'm good. I'm in a goofy mood. I don't know why my computer keeps turning my camera. All right, there we go. I think I must be moving my camera.
Our Lady of Malibu Catholic
Our Lady of Malibu.
as well as Webster Elementary. All schools in the area closed because of this fire activity. And you can see down PCH here.
Shit. That's a big fucking fire.
Emergency vehicles, LA County Fire, again, multiple agencies. PCH closed.
That's a big fucking fire.
Topanga Canyon and Laurel Canyon because of that, and all of that.
That's where I was going to live off of Laurel Canyon.
The coast. So we're going to keep an eye on things and show you different spots. But for now, that's the latest.
You just can't live anywhere. Who came to your space?
Back to you.
Daylight continues to come there to Southern California.
Okay, I'll show you.
We will start to see more of the damage already from this wildfire. We are going to take another.
Okay, I'm going to let them do. Brent Allpress came to my space. Let me tell you a little bit about Brent Allpress. Brent Allpress was in the movie that we saw, People You May Know. Brent is a journalist. Well, he's a researcher. He's so many things, and he is integral to understanding like the story of Cambridge Analytica. Yes, they're closed Pepperdine, Neil. Pepperdine is closed. Missouri? What are you guys doing? Okay, this is the news. That's why. All right. Hold on. Let me just get rid of these guys. Oh, there's our fire. That's better. That's better. Yeah, Brent Allpress came to my space. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah. Anyway, Gates to become an OAN anchor. I laughed so hard, Mac. Now, that doesn't preclude him from becoming governor of Florida. Don't get it twisted. That's not actually it might be just a holding pattern for him. But boy, does that sound like a fucking low-end rent job. It's hilarious. I mean, come on. Come on. How fucking embarrassing for you. You portrayed yourself as this big deal in the Republican Party. You get denied one fucking job. And you run to OAN? And you think that's a flex? That's crazy. Yeah. Matt Gaetz is nuts. Let's put it that way. Matt Gaetz is absolutely fucking nuts. But you know, he's still well, whatever. Anyway, yeah. The games that are played are just insane. But good morning. How are you? It's so good to see you. Good to be seen. It is Tuesday. I woke up and I thought it was Wednesday. I'm not gonna lie. But it wasn't. Oh, they're showing the things again. Hold on. Oh dear. Muffy! Muffy, get the horses! I'm just kidding. Everybody, it's horrible to lose anything in a fire. And there are a lot of horse barns around there, so I hope they do get the horses out. What happens with the governor of Florida position? So, well, so this is interesting, and I would want Gal's input. Oh, speaking of her, there she is. Boop! I said your name and you popped right into chat. Hello, my darling. Hello, my dearest friend. We were just talking about the incredible news of Gaetz and how his rise to fame is going to land him a prime spot on the OAN desk. Do you think he's going to be the White House correspondent, like take over for Chanel? Do you think? I think he's gonna do that. Oh no. What do we got? Wait, I gotta show everybody. Hold on. Oh my God. Hold on. I can't. Oh my God. Here you go, guys. Oh no. No, get the babies out of there. Get the babies out of there. Run. Run. Oh my God. I can't watch that. I can't watch that. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Oh, fuck. Where is it? Oh, I can't stand watching animals run. Oh, I can't. Okay. This is the real... Wait. Hi, Iggy. That's thanks to Teresa. I just made the meme. Teresa's the most amazing. I love you, Teresa, so much. Oh, I know. Hi, easily distracted. I didn't see you come in. I'm so sorry. Good morning, darling. Good morning, Max. Good morning, Kathy, Butterflies, Paulina, Gal, Neil, Iggy. Well, here we go. This is the new, what will the new Matt Gaetz show really be called? Oh my God, the deer just jumped over the fence over towards the smoke. I can't take this anymore. Oh my God, they're watching these baby deers and I just can't take it. Although, maybe that's what people need to see in order for people to stop doing fucking fires. I don't know how this one started, but it's probably a stupid ass. If I'm going to guess correct. Okay, here we go. This one is by that cat. Teresa. Hi, Paul J. Hi, Paul J. Hi, Nonconformity. How are you, darling? It's good to see you, my babes. This one by that cat. That's Teresa. And it says, Matt Gaetz Show and Tell. Coming to you. Sponsored by Venmo. You show me yours, I'll show you mine. That's the regular one, okay? It's a lot of landscape. There's a lot of real estate there to meme. And, that's not our fault that you left all that white space. But then, the Matt Gaetz Teen Showcase. I can't laugh this soon. Oh my God. Oh. Yes, he will. He'll be fluffing the psychopath every day. Oh my God. Sponsored by Venmo. Stop it. Yeah, Pepperdine is a Christian school. Maybe they should pray harder. I claim that one. The Teen Showcase. Holy shit, that's so funny. Oh my God. You guys are so fucking funny. Sponsored by Venmo. I know. My stomach is killing me. Okay. All right. Calm down. That's pretty funny, though. I have to admit that's pretty funny. Oh my God. Already, it's too much. You people are too much. That's really good, though. Come on now. The Matt Gaetz Show Me Yours show. Free Luigi, the next tea to come online. Oh my God. I know. Oh my God. We had the most interesting conversation in the space last night. That space is actually probably worth listening to. Because Jim came on and he was talking about this guy, right? Because he's been looking at the guy's background and what he's interested in. And apparently Elmo took down the shooter's Twitter, but then put it back up. Because, Elmo. Why not put a killer's thing back up? Anyway, so I guess Jim did a fair amount of looking and matching up certain things. And so it appears as, I don't understand all the different dimensions of this young man, but it seems like he has a lot of interest in things like Peter Thiel and those kinds of what is it? I don't know if I wouldn't want to try and ascribe a kind of theme to it because I'm not up on all the themes, but he definitely has characteristics that are more along the lines of like people who admire Ted Kaczynski, stuff like that. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff I saw on his Twitter feed. So I think Jim has a pretty good assessment of who the kid is and what his thoughts are. Must be fake. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know because it's all from older dates and it stopped, it looks pretty authentic. And like he was just reposting a lot of stuff, like some Peter Thiel stuff and other things. So, I mean, not that I'm not the one that spends a ton of time like pulling apart pulling apart all of this stuff. I think that feeds a worldview, but then, like you're saying, Max, he had a horrible back injury, which probably had something to do with the healthcare industry. So I personally have had nervous breakdowns trying to get my medicine in past. And so I understand the anger with the medical industry, with insurance companies especially. I understand the anger with pharmacy middlemen like the PMBs or whatever the fuck they are, or the pharmacy managers. They have put me through hell the last 3 years I still don't have, right now, I'm 2 months without my arthritis medicine because of insurance fuck ups. This has been going on since I've been diagnosed in 2017 with psoriatic arthritis. So I will tell you right now, that pain changed who I was. And I have had nervous breakdowns and threatened to kill myself on series of phone calls trying to get someone to help me get my medicine. So I understand exactly what he may be feeling, if that indeed was part of his reason for doing this. I understand that. So I think that it is, I think what we should be talking about is, what does the healthcare industry do to us? What have we unleashed? What have we unleashed, and how do we rein it back in? So I don't really give a shit about his, whatever. I don't care. I want to know what the insurance companies and the medical industry is going to do to respond to the fact that people are at the point of shooting people. If indeed that inspired his actions, which it may have or it may not have. I don't know. It's not my place to ascribe. But I will say, yeah, exactly. I know this isn't about healthcare. It might have augmented his mindset, but I think I think he definitely was also, yeah, I mean, he's fulfilling a mission, right? He's fulfilling a mission. So it's, yeah, chronic pain doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be acute, Paul. I understand. Yeah, thanks, butterflies. I mean, I'll get my medicine. And, I go through a couple of months of not having my medicine, and then I will eventually get it, and it'll be fine. I actually just changed my insurance companies. So in January, maybe I'll have another chance. He might have been hooked on pain pills, but he also has a very deliberate philosophy. And that was what Jim talked about last night, because Jim had spent some time looking through available information about him. And Jim has a good perspective on some of these, on how these dudes can be kind of manipulated and moved on certain things. But I don't believe it was just because his back hurt. He was radicalized through an accelerationist echo chamber, because there is a significant amount of detail or clues rather, in the social media and other things. Anarcho-capitalism, right. All they will do is prayers and thoughts, but if another billionaire goes down, then they will regulate guns. Whew. Do you think easily? Gosh, I don't even think that would do it. Isn't that funny? I don't even think that, I don't know who, no one I think could be killed by a gun that would, if a classroom full of children being shot dead doesn't move you to regulate guns, I don't know what would. Have you tried Mark Cuban's Cost Plus? I don't think you need insurance to buy the medicines there. I'm going to try that. On GoodRx, my medicine is, This is ridiculous. Okay. On GoodRx, so that's without insurance, right? On GoodRx, my medicine is $7,000 a month. $6,000 a month. It would take more than 2 billionaires, yeah. No, and this was a 3D printed gun. It was a ghost gun, which is another point that Jim brought up, which is very good. Jim has a lot of experience with the ghost gun crowd. Okay, they have a lot of experience with the ghost gun crowd. Yeah. They don't, yeah. Yeah, they were not billionaires. Yeah, but if you can't change gun laws after children are shot dead, then I don't really understand what you think is going to happen here, because that's just not. Oh, here we go. Oh, Greg has a Substack from Greg. Oh yeah, ghost guns. Okay, there's a link about ghost guns. The first link that Gal just dropped is about ghost guns. Oh, here we go. I'm going to add that. So we have a Prevail from December 10th. Oh, that's today. Oh my God, I don't even know what day it is. Crass as this sounds, if the U.S. didn't regulate guns after Sandy Hook, it never will. You're right, Neil. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. We're not, until we have complete dominance over the right, we'll never put regulations in. It's just fucking ridiculous to me, actually. We also have a hearing. We have a lot today, so just settle in, because I'm going to be here pretty much all day, okay? I got a lot to read. We have a lot to watch. In fact, I need to check and make sure. Where's my sheet? Where's my sheet? Oh. Huh? Huh? Oh. Let me go back to YouTube. Yeah, YouTube is the best. All right, here's your choices. Are you ready? I need audience participation here, because we've got, I think, 3 things. So we have, oh my God, we have so much. Okay, listen. We've got oversight of the U.S. Postal Service. Okay. We've got Homeland Security, open border policies. Okay, we've got that. And then we have a Supreme Court case on how lawsuits can be settled from a defendant's profits. That sounds so boring. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it. Nope. I'm going to say no to SCOTUS. That's a no. So it's really either Postal Service or... Oh, wait, what's this? What's this? A hearing on potential deportations under Trump. Okay, well, I think that's the same thing I was looking at, but I could be wrong. Now, the question is, Postal Service or border? I think the border is the Senate thing that this one's covering, but I'm not sure. Who is it? Senate committee holds hearing on potential deportations under Trump. But what was the other one? I don't know. It's satisfying. Homeland Security. Well, that's got to be it, right? I mean, it's got to be that. Okay, well, we'll just take a look at it. Anyway, so you're going to have to choose. Well, actually, we could put them both on the screen. I could do that. I can put them both on the screen. And then we'll read. Actually, I could read something right now because it's not starting yet. Okay. All right, here we go. I got chills. They're multiplying. This is the link that Gal dropped. This is from Everytown for gun safety. It's a great website, actually, around gun safety. It has all the numbers. It has the description of the problem. It's a very good website. So this talks about ghost guns, which is what the gentleman used to shoot the other gentleman. And it's a do-it-yourself. And I was asking about last night. So apparently, some parts of a gun are regulated, but some parts are not. And in order to make a ghost gun, you basically print all the parts around the barrel, right? The one part that you need to be metal. So it's horrible. I mean, we're just too inventive in this country. So this is ghost guns are the fastest growing gun safety problem facing our country. ATF estimates that more than 77,700 suspected privately made firearms were recovered by law enforcement between 2016 and 2022, nearly 2/3 of which were recovered in 2021 and 2022. Yes, we are. They are becoming a weapon of choice for violent criminals, gun traffickers, and other legally prohibited persons, as well as right-wing extremists. The country has also seen incidents of gunfire on school grounds and unintentional shootings by children involving ghost guns. Recent federal action: federal authorities finalized a rule which took effect in August 2022 that clarified that the core building blocks of ghost guns are firearms under the law, ensuring that they are traceable and that licensed dealers must conduct a background checks before their sale. The rule updated and clarified key regulatory definitions, including firearm, frame, and receiver, to ensure that kits and components that are easily assembled into untraceable ghost guns are subject to the same regulations as firearms. This ATF rule has been challenged in court, and litigation is ongoing. In the event that the ATF rule is struck down, Congress must act to ensure that the core parts of ghost guns are defined as firearms and properly regulated. Yes, that is so true. Which states regulate ghost guns? Well, let's check. Vermont, Mass, Rhode Island. Okay, so yeah, Illinois, Washington. We did. Hawaii did. Nobody else did. Well, there you go. That's something to advocate for. And then this is our darling Greg Oliar. Yeah, 3D printed guns. Hi, Carla. How are you? I hope work was okay. The House will vote to begin work on 3 bills, including the final version of the 2025 Defense Programs and Policy Bill, blocking clothes washer energy efficiency standards. Oh, my God. Come on now. What? Why are people so dumb? Yeah, the smart states, Kathy. Oh. Good morning, Teresa. Did you hear us talking about you? We were laughing at your thing. Here, hold on. We were laughing at this. You're so funny. You're so funny. Look it. We talked about you this morning, Teresa. That's hilarious, fucking Teresa, I laughed my fucking ass off about this. Yeah, did you get a nebulizer, Carla? Aren't we good? We're just like sticking, we're just making sure you got everything. No nebulizer. I'll have one soon. Stupid Republicans. It's not the guns, it's the person. Yeah, exactly. It's just a mental health issue, but we're not going to give you any money for mental health. Hello. Figure it out. Oh, my goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right. Let's see. What do we got? Oh, Greg Oliar. Hi. Hi, Lee. How are you, darling? I'm so glad you guys are here. It's so nice everybody's here. I'm so happy. Hi. Oh, hi, everyone. Okay, so we're waiting. Okay, so wait. Did we decide postal? Are we going postal or border? Okay, no problem, Lee. I'll be your background whenever you have a moment. Oh, butterflies. You're such a doll. You know what? There's a lot of love in this room. Border. I say border too. Postal Service. Bleh. I mean, I'll put them both on the screen. Maybe one of them will have whatevers. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, right? Maybe one of them will have subtitles. Hold on. Okay, let me try and get everything set up because what time is it? Ah! And then we will read Greg's. And I have a few other things for you. I've been a busy little bee. Busy little bee. All right, so let me get this. Will be the border. This will be the border. This will be the border. I think these are the same hearing. I think. Oh, Republicans are holding a presser? Oh, not yet. Boring. All right. Let's see. We'll leave that there. And then over here, I'm gonna do this over here. I need a mouse pad because I'm banging my mouse around. La 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 la. Off to Chicago tomorrow for a work event and then celebrate your birthday weekend. Oh my God, Lee! Happy birthday! Oh my God, I wish I was there to celebrate with you. Oh my God. I wish I was there to celebrate with you. Good morning, How are you? RSBN is going to cover the Homeland Security, so you know it's going to be a show, but probably to distract from the mass deportation. Well, that's the thing. I was going to do the mass deportation. Well, I have the mass deportation hearing on here. I'm going to do the Homeland Security. Oh, well, wait. I don't get it. Oh, open border policies. Yeah. Damn. Okay, well, we're gonna navigate this little landscape. Hold on. You're the one that I want. You're the only one for. Ooh, 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 honey. Let's see. 100. Yeah. Okay. Great. Perfect. That'll be that. That'll be that one. This is the border. Well, this is the deportations under Trump. This is the deportations hearing. Is there 2 border hearings? Gal, you didn't need to do that. Ha! Ha! Durbin, you're starting early.
He will declare a national emergency as part of a mass deportation plan. I've made a living out of politics, as have my colleagues at the table here. During the course of the campaign, you can make promises. Sometimes they come true and sometimes they don't. The notion of Mexico building a wall on our southern border was repeated over and over
sing
again.
A song
it didn't happen.
Lee.
There was an extension of the wall on our border, but Mexico didn't pay for it. Things change when you go from high-flying campaign rhetoric to ground. Think about for a moment using our military for a mass deportation plan. I'm sure it would have a damaging impact on the morale of the troops, rounding up people in their own communities at a time when we're already facing the most serious recruitment challenge in years. Listen to the words of Stephen Miller, who now has been promoted to a higher level position, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy for incoming President Trump. Here's what Stephen Miller said. In terms of personnel, you go to the red state governors and you say, give us your National Guard. We will deputize them as immigration enforcement officers. And if you're going to go into an unfriendly state like Maryland, Stephen Miller said, well, there would just be Virginia doing the arrests in Maryland, right? Very close, very nearby. Almost a nonchalant attitude toward the notion of sending National Guard from one state to the other to end up sending people out of this country. In addition to weakening our military, it would cost hundreds of billions of dollars to deport every undocumented immigrant in our country. It would damage our economy and separate American families. Instead, we should focus on deporting those who are truly a danger to America, and we should give the rest a chance to earn legal status. They would have to register with the government, certainly pay their taxes, and submit to serious background checks. Most Americans, nearly 2 out of 3, agree we should give lawful status to undocumented immigrants who don't pose a threat to our country. That's what we did in 2013. A bipartisan group of 8 senators, including myself, Ranking Member Graham, drafted a bill to reform our immigration laws and secure our border. 2013 it was. That bill passed the Senate 68-32. Unfortunately, it wasn't taken up by the House of Representatives and the Republican majority. The notion behind that was that everyone would be under requirement to come forward and identify themselves to the government. All the undocumented people in this country. And if they identified themselves,
that's what I
went
thought.
through a background check,
why is he in bed with
paid
Tony
their taxes, they could continue to live and work here without fear of deportation. In fact, in our bill, over a long period of time, and a really long period of time, they could be on a path to legality and citizenship. That's a starting point that I think makes sense. Not mass deportation,
Good job, everybody.
but mass accountability.
Good job.
So we
That's
know
what you
who's
voted
here.
for. Good job.
And how would it make a difference? We would go to E-Verify to make sure that if you didn't go through that process in our bill,
It's going to be a mess, Neil.
you couldn't legally work in the United States. So there was an enforcement. It was serious. I'm glad I was part of that effort, and I hope we can return to the discussion. Over the weekend, President-elect Trump, I watched his interview on Meet the Press. He said some positive things from my point of view. And he really challenged us on the Democratic side to work with him when it came to the Dreamers. I accept the challenge. Name the time and place, Mr. President. I'll be there. The reality is that Congress, for almost 40 years, has failed to fix our broken immigration system. We've had opportunities to do it. I hope we can find more in the future. We should use our 2013 immigration bill as a starting point instead of mass deportations, as I said, mass accountability. Let's fix our broken immigration system in a way that protects our country and honors our heritage as a nation of immigrants. Now I recognize Senator Graham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. From our point of view over here, one of the primary issues facing the American people in 2024 for president and other elections, who is best able to control a broken border? Most Americans are sympathetic, kind-hearted people who feel like the Biden administration was criminally negligent in protecting us by having a broken border and allowing drugs to pour into our country to kill tens of thousands of young people, allow people to come in our country who are convicted felons to do damage to families we'll hear from today. That nightmare is coming to a close. In January of 2025, the Republican
A new nightmare
Senate
begins.
will make its top priority a transformational border security bill that will be taken up and passed by Budget Committee, increasing the number of bed spaces available to detain people instead of releasing them, increasing the number of ICE agents to deal with people who should be deported,
Paulina, who took the picture?
Finish the wall, and put technology on the border so we'll have operational control of the border. That's going to be our top priority. I want to cut taxes, we will cut taxes. But as to the Senate,
fuck these people.
Transformational border security goes first through reconciliation. Over 8 million people were encountered during the Biden years, 4 million released into the country. The non-detained docket that we have as a nation is over 7 million
They're
people.
sitting in their oats.
There are 600
okay,
and
they're
something
sitting in their
thousand
oats
people
and they're super happy about
on that
it.
non-detained document.
Don't
criminal
tase them,
records.
bro. Come on.
We're going to start sending people out of the country.
I do like the olive tie behind him,
that present a threat
though.
to us and should never have been here to begin with. The politics of immigration and broken borders, according to a couple of Democratic senators, was outcome determinative. I think they're right. So as much as I respect and admire the chairman, I think your focus is misplaced here.
They can't
You
be where
should
they
be
are.
working with us to clean up this mess. You should want mass deportations of people here illegally that represent threats to our country. How did we get to where we're at? The average annual deportation for Obama and Trump was about the same.
It's like the ring girls.
Along comes Biden.
Why aren't they
drops
wearing
like a rock.
bikinis?
So when
I
you have
need
people
titties.
show up
Show us your tits
and
and
by
that
the
side.
millions, and the number of people being deported goes down by 40-something%.
Yeah, we have a lot
you're
of thoughts about
incentivizing more
Eric
people
Prince
to come.
destabilizing
It's
developing
our
countries.
belief that the only way you'll get control of the border is for deportations to start early so people will not pay the money to the coyotes and others to come to our border in the first place because they see people leaving, not staying.
Yeah, it was.
If we do not have outflow the inflow will continue.
Are you fucking, what is it? It's not a fucking,
An example
oh my God.
of a broken immigration system
Rules for women's dress in Congress. If you're going to hold a sign, you need to wear a bikini.
Mass parole of people who did not meet the 2 criteria under the parole statute.
Oh, yes.
The man
you
who's
do
been
need that
convicted
Roger
of killing
Stone pick.
Laken Riley was paroled into the country because there was no bed space. There's nothing in the statute
then you should have passed
that
the
allows
fucking
parole
bill
because we have no place
that
to
let
put
us
you.
build more bed
With
space.
38,000 beds, we're going to increase that dramatically. One of the witnesses here today, his family was destroyed by a man that had been deported 3 times. The 4th time was not a charm. So if you're here illegally, get ready to leave. If you're a criminal, we're coming after you first. If you've been paroled illegally, we're not going to give you the roots to attach yourself to our country because you should not have been here in the first place. As to the dreamers, hopefully we can find a solution to that problem. What I want to do is regain control of a broken border really quickly. The highest number of people on the terrorist watch list in our country exists today. I hope that number will go down pretty quickly. I know Senator Cornyn's on the Intel Committee. In many ways, a broken immigration system has created a ticking time bomb for our national security.
You're so cool.
So
oh
yes,
my God.
the Republican Party
I'm
will pass as its top priority.
Thank you, Greg.
Border security, more bed spaces so you don't have to release people that shouldn't be released, and more ICE agents to deport people who represent a threat to our country and shouldn't be here to begin with. We're going to do that. And to my Democratic friends, I think if you resist rational deportation policy, you do so at your own peril.
Put him right next to you.
86% of the people deported under the Trump first term
right next to him. Hi, Badger.
were involved with criminal convictions or pending criminal matters. I have never seen such a mess.
Well, you haven't?
It's time to clean that mess up.
Oh, fuck yourself.
So come January,
fuck off.
Help is on the way.
Fuck off.
Thank you, Senator Graham. We have an immigration subcommittee.
He'll ruin us and we'll deserve it.
Senator Padilla and Ranking Member Senator Cornyn. They each asked for a chance to make an opening statement. I recognize Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Graham. I want to thank each and every one of the witnesses that are here today for obviously a timely and important discussion, but taking place during an uncertain and unnerving time for many in our nation's history. I'm going to deviate for a second from my prepared remarks just to acknowledge what Senator Graham has begun to lay out. Look, this topic, this issue is certainly complex. It doesn't do the issue and the challenge justice to just say, well, there's so many immigrants in America, or some people say illegal, some people say undocumented immigrants in America, when you really must break it down into a number of categories. Are there some number that beyond being in the country undocumented may be involved with unlawful activities? Yes, and I don't think you're going to find Democrats saying we shouldn't be. I love
him. Thank you, Alex. I love you so much.
Actions against violent criminals. But when Senator Graham also suggests, but I hope we can take care of the dreamers. Dreamers, as you all know, young people who were brought here by their parents at a very young age, but have grown up here and are undocumented. Are they also on the target list for deportation, or not, because we look at them in a different category? I've had Republican colleagues want to cooperate and collaborate on legal status and pathways to citizenship for farm workers, for example. And I get back to them and other essential workers in America, but just because you're undocumented, does that mean you are on the target list? Yes or no? Or are we going to have the maturity and act responsibly to kind of break down a complex conversation? Because, number one, yes, Democrats believe we need an orderly, safe, and humane border. Number two, yes, we should not hesitate to pursue enforcement actions against violent criminals. But let's be clear what we are talking about today. This hearing is on the eve of the next Donald Trump administration. And we've heard him for months and months and months now throughout the campaign trail promise mass deportations. We heard him over and over again commit to, quote, the largest deportation operation in American history. And we've had big ones. For folks watching at home, Google Operation Wetback and begin to do some homework. We've even heard Donald Trump say that there will be no price tag for deportations, and heard him promise on Truth Social to use the United States military to execute it. Now, I can already hear some of the rebuttals from Republican colleagues to suggest that, well, he doesn't really mean all immigrants. He's only talking about violent criminals. Well, I wish I could believe that he's only committing to targeting violent criminals, because we agree on that front. But pardon me if I'm skeptical, we've seen him. We've seen Donald Trump in the past and how he operates. Do you remember the Muslim bans he imposed early in his first term? And the family separations at the border that we witnessed for years? So I've seen enough to know that while he may plan to prioritize, in effect, he will be targeting all undocumented immigrants, which will inevitably include those without criminal convictions of any type.
I don't know, Gal.
Now,
I thought it was only the study requirements for environmental regulators for SCOTUS today.
The policy of previous administrations to prioritize the deportation of those with criminal convictions. But what we're hearing from incoming President Trump isn't that. And look at who he has put in these pivotal roles to help him execute. A loyalist in Christine Ohm at DHS, extremist Stephen Miller as Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, and Tom Homan as border czar, who told undocumented immigrants through the press, quote, "You should be afraid."
Yeah.
End quote.
The hell
Dreamers,
are we?
Farm workers, that's the message. And he
people
promised
who pick his produce, people who serve
anyone who stands in their way.
People who
They're pushing
are
an
the foundation
agenda.
of our economy.
On top of the fact that, like, separating spouses and ripping away children from their parents, citizen children from sometimes undocumented immigrant parents, isn't just cruel. It's not just morally wrong. Here's another very important reason why Americans should be concerned. For anybody whose vote this last November was motivated by high prices of food, of housing, of anything else, understand that the mass deportation Donald Trump is describing will be disastrous to our economy. Again, I'm not trying to justify those involved with criminal activity. We're on all the same page there. I'm talking about nonviolent criminal, undocumented immigrants. It is all of us, the American people, who will pay for the extremism policies that he has promised. Put aside the millions and millions and millions of dollars to find undocumented immigrants he may be targeting, to detain and to remove through the process of deportation. For a minute, don't even count on
the record, Carla.
The funds that would be necessary
to
hire thousands of Border Patrol and ICE agents, let alone the cost of constructing detention centers and jails for this operation. Let's focus on the impacts to the economy for American families. Because the fact is, there are millions of undocumented immigrants living in the United States today who are working in industries critical to our entire economy. Undocumented immigrants make up nearly 15% of all construction workers, for example, and roughly half of our agricultural workforce. Again, if you care about the cost of housing, you care about food prices at the grocery store, you should be paying attention. Because if tomorrow Stephen Miller could snap his fingers and have his way, our annual GDP would drop roughly 6.8%. Imagine all the losses of the Great Recession and then still shrinking the economy another 2.5 points. So what does that mean for folks at home? It's simple. Any industry with a significant percentage of undocumented immigrants will have a harder time finding workers. And I know we've all been hearing from employers and business leaders for years now about their struggle already.
And a sub-devil, right? He's not even the devil, because that gives him too much clout.
Stores will have a harder time keeping the shelves stocked.
He's one of those little, like,
and yes, prices
minions.
will rise and rise and rise. So hello, America. Get ready for a more expensive food bill when you're preparing next year's Thanksgiving dinner or next year's Christmas dinner. And if you've been saving up for years and years to try to buy your first home, get ready to wait even longer because construction will slow and prices
We're all paying
will
the price
go up.
For the dumb shits.
So the next time we hear Republicans say that they support Trump's plan to deport waves of undocumented immigrants, let's be clear about what comes with that. Higher prices for American families.
Aww,
They're supporting the forced removal of millions of hardworking community members.
Welcome.
80% of whom have lived here 10 years or more. These are not recent arrivals. People who have lived here for years, if not decades. They're supporting fear and uncertainty in immigrant communities that will cause untold numbers of immigrants, no matter their status, to stay home from work, from school, from shopping. And they're supporting the punishment of over 5 million workers who Donald Trump's own administration declared to be, quote, essential to our economy. Essential workers who fed us and kept us safe
but not.
during the
It's on the
COVID-19
coast. It's
pandemic.
basically due west from me.
If you agree
kind of
with the
due
spirit
west and a little
at least
north.
that segment deserves
It's about
better.
a 20-minute drive.
Then colleagues, join me in supporting the Citizenship for Essential Workers Act. The essential workers that the Trump administration deemed critical to our nation's economy and security. Let's provide them with some legal status up front and a pathway to earn citizenship because we need them. Our economy needs farm workers. I think you'd agree. Our economy needs construction workers, hospitality and transportation workers, healthcare workers, and students and innovators who help keep our economy and our country thriving. We don't need the massive deportations that the political rhetoric of the campaign cycle has brought us. And we certainly don't need the uncertainty, the fear, and the loss that we'll feel for years to come. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses and to today's conversation.
Thanks, Senator Padilla. Senator Cornyn.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. Listening to my Democratic colleagues, it's as if November 5th never occurred, that we haven't had an election, that we haven't had a referendum on the failed border policies of the Biden-Harris administration.
Shut up.
Let's be clear, the crisis at the southern border is entirely a problem caused by the Biden administration's policies. It is a man-made disaster. The election, I believe, in large part was a referendum on those policies, and the American people spoke decisively, rejecting this as the new normal. They rejected lawlessness as the new normal. When President Biden came into office, Customs and Border Protection was apprehending about 70,000 illegal migrants a month. President Biden came in and reversed virtually all of the Trump administration policies, including canceling our agreements with Mexico and the Northern Triangle countries to limit
that's the fire coverage at
immigration.
Malibu to my whatever.
President Biden also attempted to impose a 100-day moratorium on all
2.5 million votes.
By March,
separated them.
Illegal crossings had ballooned to 170,000.
People voting for RFK
up from
ruined
70,000,
it.
and then climbed progressively higher from there. Then the president used his executive authority to implement new guidelines that made clear to illegal immigrants that DHS was extremely unlikely to take any action against them until their conduct became especially egregious. Even so, criminal aliens were able to get away with a lot before any action would be taken. Take, for example, the tragic case of Rachel Morin, a mother of 5 who was raped and murdered by an illegal migrant. Her killer crossed the border illegally in February of 2023. He was suspected of committing multiple crimes even before he took her life. This tragedy and others like it could have been prevented were it not for President Biden's willful refusal to enforce the law. The truth of the matter is, President Biden's willful neglect of border security and public safety has created immense suffering for American families. And his administration is fully responsible for the fact that we have to hold this hearing today. The American people are fed up with the lawlessness at the southern border, and in November they tasked Republicans the job
Wait till the midterms. Are we going to have midterms? Yeah, we are, right?
We will do.
I don't. Let me check, Badger. I'm not
we
sure.
Have a
it looks
big
like
job
they're
ahead of us,
pretty decent.
No doubt.
I don't know how this one started.
But
must have happened overnight.
There are already 1.3 to 1.6 migrants who are under final orders of deportation who are still in the country. That strikes me as a good place to start.
Fucking sign the bill, you stupid cunt.
Due process and hearing in front of an immigration court and are under final orders of deportation. What are they still doing here? Well, it's because of the Biden administration's willful neglect.
They have to keep lying. You don't understand. They already lied so much.
By my calculations, the Biden administration has released at least 3.6 million illegal migrants over the southern border. And during the same 4 years, Border Patrol recorded an additional 1.7 million gotaways. Those are people willfully evading law enforcement. As of 2022, more than 1 million illegal immigrants have received final orders of removal, but were still present in the United States, and that has now ballooned to about 1.3 million plus.
Actually, in Malibu right now, they're only 11 miles an hour winds,
ICE,
but there is a high wind warning.
Had more than 660,000 criminal aliens on its national docket. I look forward to doing what the American people voted for on November 5th, which is to restore the law and enforcement of the law as the new normal in America, unlike the last 4 years.
Interesting,
and it's going
Jim.
to require us to
agencies.
do a lot of work to clean up the mess left by the previous administration's policies. We have to make it absolutely clear to prospective illegal immigrants that we will enforce our immigration laws. We will not
coming in around 15 miles an hour on the ground, they said, though. So that was
the new normal.
Must have been earlier.
What we will accept is lawful, orderly, humane immigration policies. We are the most generous country in the world when it comes to naturalizing people coming to our country.
It takes over a decade in some cases. Get out of here.
That's the right way to do it, not the way the Biden administration
fuck off, corny
had it done. We will follow through on the orders of removal by immigration courts, and again, we will not accept lawlessness, and criminality.
Lolly, get your adverbs here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Cornyn. Today we welcome 5 witnesses. I'll introduce the 3 majority witnesses and then turn to Ranking Member Graham to introduce the 2 minority witnesses. Our first witness is Fode Toure. I hope I was close to pronouncing it correctly. Thank you. He is protected from deportation under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, also known as DACA, created under President Obama. Mr. Toure now serves as an assistant district attorney in the city of Philadelphia.
Did they also realize that those numbers that they have of people into the country also include people going in multiple times?
In the Pentagon and around the world for 30 years.
No? Okay.
Including acting vice chief of the National Guard Bureau, in which he oversaw that
data matters
part of our military defense. Finally, we are joined by Aaron Reichlin Melnick, a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, where he works to inform the American public about immigration policy and advance fact-based research into enforcement. Ranking Member Graham, would you like to introduce your witnesses?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first witness is Mr. Art Arthur. He is a resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies. Prior to joining the center in 2017, he served as an immigration
Claremont
judge,
Institute?
was Associate General Counsel at Immigration Naturalization Service. He served as Staff Director for the National Security Subcommittee on the House, Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and Counsel on the House Judiciary Committee. He is an expert on immigration policy. He has decided thousands of cases, has testified before Congress on more than 10 occasions. He received his JD.
Well, now it
from
says
George
it's 20
Washington
to
University
31 miles an hour.
and his bachelor's
I guess
from
the
the
app on my
University of
phone
Virginia.
is wrong. Stupid app. Anyway,
Ms.
Franklin
Warren
Fire, 20 to
is here
31
with
miles
us
per hour,
again.
gusts of 34 to 48.
She is from Aberdeen,
Low humidity.
Maryland.
Fuck.
She's retired, but currently works part-time.
0%
As an
containment.
office administrator for a church. She has six
Right,
children,
Carla? Thank
stay-at-home mom for 25
I
years.
think a general strike is coming, guys.
children.
I really do.
She is mother of Rachel Morin, and she joins us today to share Rachel's story. Real quickly, Senator Cornyn mentioned this, but the man who stands accused of murdering Rachel was deported 3 times.
Here we go. Get your tissues.
Suspected of murdering a woman in El
We're going to use
Salvador, where he
this
came
incredibly poor, tragic story of this young
broke
woman
into a
being
home
murdered.
in California and assaulted a young girl who's pending trial, like everybody else. He's innocent until proven guilty. But this case not only has destroyed your family and broken your heart, Ms. Morin, it should be a wake-up call to the country. And I got the call, and we're going to do something about this. Thank you.
I'm going to
Senator
protect
Graham.
you. I'm going to protect you, Mrs. Morin. I'm going to
swear in the
protect
witnesses. They each
you.
have 5 minutes to make presentations, and then we open it to the senators who have each 5 minutes to ask questions. So my first request is for the 5 witnesses to please stand and take the oath. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? The record reflects that the 5 witnesses answered in the affirmative. Mr. Toure, you're first.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, a member of this committee, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you all for inviting me to speak with you today. Before I begin, I'd like to express my deep sympathy to Patty Morin for the horror she and her family have endured. My prayers are with you and those dedicated fighting for justice. My name is Forte Toure. I am a DACA recipient, a prosecutor, a husband, and a dad, and without question, a patriot. My love for this country stems from my elementary school days, when I recited the Pledge of Allegiance with all my classmates each morning. My family came to the United States in search of freedom and safety. I was born in Sierra Leone at a time of great civil unrest. When I was 4 years old, my father was killed, and my mother and grandmother and I fled to Guinea, a neighboring country. My mother was able to migrate to the United States, but I stayed with my grandmother, who died shortly after my mother left. I came to the United States on my 7th birthday in 2003. I have been here ever since. I learned that I was undocumented when I tried to get a driver's license. It was one of the worst days of my life. In 2012, I was thrown a lifeline when DACA was announced. Thanks to DACA, I was able to graduate from college and attend law school on a full merit scholarship. I now work full-time for the District Attorney's Office in Philadelphia. During this time, I met and married my beautiful wife, Jack CL, who is here with me today. And we bought a house, and we had our son. The opportunity to address all of you on behalf of DACA recipient and mixed status families like mine is not one I take for granted. My wife and I have spent years building community, and we're extremely anxious about what the future might bring. I feel the consequences of mass deportation on a personal level, on a community level, and on a societal level. On a personal level, my wife is here and I have no family in Sierra Leone to help sustain me. I'm currently the breadwinner in my family. If I were to be deported, my wife and our son would be left without to pay the mortgage. My son would also be without a father. My deportation would hurt my own U.S. citizen mother and my wife's extended family, all of whom are United States citizens. My wife is the primary caregiver
budget,
of her mother,
Carla?
who is legally disabled and has a tumor in her brain. My wife's mother requires chemotherapy injection each month in order to control the size of the tumor on her brain. If I were to be deported, my wife would no longer be able to play such a critical role in her mother's life. My wife should not have to choose between caring for her mother, who is legally disabled and has a brain tumor, and me. My brother-in-law should not have to choose between re-enlisting the Marines next year and risking his mother's health if my wife is not here to care for her. My brother-in-law has been serving in the United States Marines since he graduated high school. On a community level, my taxes help fund my community's road, school, and overall well-being. If I were to be ripped from my community, the taxes I pay would go with me. My wife and I are also devoted Christians with strong ties to our church. Finally, the people of Philadelphia would be hurt if I were to disappear. Victims of crimes whose cases I prosecute will lose an ally in their fight for justice. On a society level, mass deportation would be devastating. As a prosecutor, I know how delicate the ties between law enforcement and immigrants can be. If immigrants are afraid to cooperate with the police or prosecutors like myself because they're afraid of deportation, we all suffer. When you have ICE agents patrolling courthouses and police stations, you create a category of people who are less willing to report crimes and less willing to cooperate with law enforcement in solving crimes. Mass deportation hurts all of us, our family, our community, and our society. We owe it to ourselves and to our country to reject mass deportation and look for a solution for dreamers whose lives have become deeply rooted in the country and strengthen our borders.
He's a
DACA recipient and long-term undocumented individuals in mixed-status families have become pillars in their homes. Removing them would place hardship on U.S. citizens like my mother-in-law, U.S. citizens like my wife, who depends on our contribution in the House. This will cause an incentive for those U.S. citizens to turn to social welfare programs due to one less income in the home. After more than 2 decades here, I can absolutely state that this is my home. I am part of the fabric of my community, and they are part of me. The federal government may not have fully recognized this truth yet, but I long for the day when they do. Until that day comes, I'll continue to contribute everything to my house, to my mother-in-law, to my son, to my wife, and to my entire family. Thank you all so much for your time and attention to this critical issue.
Thank you, Mr. Toure.
Oh, my gosh.
Mr. Arthur.
Wow.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me today. My name is Andrew Arthur, and I'm the resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies, a nonpartisan think tank here in Washington. Respectfully and humbly, I believe that today's hearing, which focuses on the immigration enforcement policies of the incoming Trump administration, is premature, because as of yet, the incoming administration has not announced its policies. Given that, however, the committee should assume 2 things. First, that the policies the new administration will implement will comport with law. And second, that those policies will implement enforcement mandates Congress has set forth in the Immigration and Nationality Act. As the Supreme Court has made clear, the principle that Congress is entrusted exclusively with the formulation of policies relating to the entry of aliens and their right to remain here, quote, has become about as firmly embedded in the legislative and judicial tissues of our body politic as any aspect of our government, close quote. Right now, the U.S. immigration system is at a breaking point. The number of cases pending before the immigration courts has nearly tripled, in the past 5 fiscal years. And that's after 700,000 cases involving putatively removable aliens were terminated, dismissed, or closed. A record 10.8 million plus inadmissible applicants for admission have been encountered nationwide since FY 2021. And between releases and gotaways,
I would ask him where his family comes
nearly 8
from
million inadmissible aliens have
and how
entered
they
our
got
country
here.
over the past 4 years. The sad state of our immigration system is directly attributable to policy decisions that have been made at the local, state, and most critically federal level, not by
he
Congress,
stowed away from Limerick, Ireland. From the west of Ireland.
Constitutional order over
so
immigration.
He was a stowaway.
But by an executive branch that has usurped Congress's authority. That has needlessly rendered the American people vulnerable to predation by criminals and aliens who pose a national security risk. And as the chairman of the Federal Reserve has admitted, it has dampened wages for American workers, both citizens and lawful immigrants, and impacted the unemployment rate. Most critically, however, it has ruined the faith of the American people and the credibility of our immigration system. As Barbara Jordan, civil rights icon, former member of Congress, and at the time chairman of the U.S. Commission on Immigration Reform, told Congress in 1995, quote, "Credibility in immigration policy can be summed up in one sentence. Those who should get in, those who should be kept out are kept out, and those who should not be here will be required to leave," close quote. With deportations, including deportations of criminal aliens plunging over the past 4 years, Senator Graham's chart showed, it's little wonder that, as Gallup reported in July, a majority of Americans want an immigration reduction, reversing a 19-year trend. The law mandates that illegal migrants be detained, but that law has been ignored. The law mandates that alien criminals be removed, but that law has been ignored. And most crucially, the law mandates that foreign nationals who want to come here do so legally. But that law has only been honored in the breach. This massive migrant surge has allowed our elected officials to ignore the fact that 22.5% of working-age American men are out of the workforce. A 7.6% increase
well, they can
compared
go
to,
to the farms.
and
they could
11.2% more
bus
than in
in restaurants. There's jobs.
Those non-working Americans are more vulnerable to addiction, disease,
What's their
and
fucking
problem?
I think it's too much PS5.
2 weeks ago, in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir
porn.
Starmer resolved to address the immigration source of such issues in Great Britain.
How an immigration hearing turned into an anti-porn hearing.
In his 1995 State of the Union address, President Bill Clinton explained, quote, "All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country.
You know,
the jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants.
And all
the public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers.
No, that means you're lying.
That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure
you're lying.
our borders.
And I know you want to be loud, Mr. Arthur, and you think somehow loud is going to be better than right.
By deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
It just looks desperate.
By cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens, close quote. Change the tenses, and that's pretty much what President Trump promised to do when he was candidate Trump on the campaign trail. Thank you. Truly appreciate the honor, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Mr. Arthur. General
Fuck
Manna.
you, Mr. Arthur.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, members of the committee, I thank you for your invitation to speak today. For over 35 years, I served our nation in both the regular Army and in the National Guard. Prior to retiring from the Army as a Major General, I served as the Deputy Commanding General of the United States Third Army in Kuwait, as the Acting Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau, and as the Acting and Deputy Director of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. During the time I served, I saw firsthand that our military force is the envy of the world. It is respected by our allies and by people around the world who want to live free of oppression. It is feared by our enemies and those who would do us harm. Our military members come from every possible background, representing every state, every race, ethnic group, and religion. But when they come together in the military, they are molded together in a team expected to embody the values which make America great: duty, honor, integrity, respect, selfless service, loyalty, personal courage, and excellence. President-elect Trump has announced his intent to use the U.S. military to execute his mass deportation plan. I am gravely concerned that placing our military in this role could cause significant harm to both the institution of our armed forces and to service members themselves. There are 4 significant risks that I want to emphasize. First, using military assets for mass deportations would negatively impact the military's readiness and capability to accomplish its core mission of national defense. Our military is engaged in over 160 countries around the world. They are focused on responding to potential threats from China, Russia, and other competitors, strengthening interoperability with allies and partners, and taking care of our servicemen and their families. Our National Guard units are stretched thin, responding to natural disasters at home while also regularly deploying overseas in active duty status. Additional training or deployments to support deportation operations would absolutely harm operational readiness and reduce the military's ability to counter adversaries or respond to crises in combat. My second concern is that the military is simply not trained to do this mission. Immigration enforcement is the responsibility of federal law enforcement agencies like ICE and CBP. These agencies' personnel regularly interact with migrants and U.S. citizens. They are extensively trained in the appropriate application of immigration law, the protection of civil rights and civil liberties, and care of migrants in custody. The U.S. military is the best trained in the world for its warfighting mission, but it is neither trained or equipped for immigration enforcement. Most active duty armed forces receive no training for domestic law enforcement situations. A small number of National Guard units receive a mere 4 to 8 hours of civil disturbance training per year. This lack of training and experience greatly increases the risk of significant and potentially deadly mistakes in a charged operational environment. My third concern is the effect on recruiting, retention, and morale. The military is already facing its most challenging recruitment environment in 50 years. Involvement of the military in a politically charged domestic deportation efforts would only add to those challenges. It would separate service members from their families, their jobs, and their communities for extended periods of time in order to engage in a highly controversial mission for which service members would feel ill-equipped and trained. That's a recipe for disillusionment and a poor advertisement for potential recruits. Finally, involving the military in a politically charged domestic issue like mass deportation would erode public trust in the military. Americans trust our military because it protects all of us, regardless of our politics, from the possibility of foreign aggression. When the military is tasked with carrying out domestic policies that may be controversial to some, it undermines the foundation of that trust. That, in turn, will increase risk in morale, recruitment, retention,
it doesn't go well, I'll tell you that from kind of personal experience.
Serious consequences for our national security. Gentlemen, for these reasons, and ladies,
I have run through a barricade at night in Monrovia
any future
to not stop for a police checkpoint.
To keep immigration enforcement and our military separate. Thank you, and I look forward to our questions.
Thanks, General Manner. Ms. Moore.
At every corner, Max, at every corner.
Chairman, ranking members, senators, thank you for this opportunity to come speak to you. I really appreciate it. As you can tell from my introduction, I'm not a politician. I'm a mother. I raised 6 children. I have 25 grandchildren. I have 4 great-grandchildren. The day that we got the phone call that my daughter had been murdered, I'm sure you've heard this before, but I was in Kentucky. We had a grandbaby that had passed away. And when I got the phone call, the detective said, Mrs. Morin, we found your daughter's body. At the time, all I knew was that my daughter was dead. When I went to meet with the detective and we had come back from Kentucky, I was told that she was beaten so badly that her body was blanketed in bruises, that she was strangled, that she was raped, and that she was stuffed into a drain pipe. The person that they alleged did this was an illegal immigrant from El Salvador that was a gotaway. He had already, they already had an Interpol warrant for him in El Salvador for murdering a woman. He had attacked a 9-year-old and her mother in California, and he waited on the trail that day that our family has walked for 25 years and dragged my daughter off the trail and did these horrendous, brutal things. This is what she looked like before that day. Oops. She's a beautiful woman, but more than that, you can tell from looking at her just the light that comes out of her. She was a happy person. She loved her children. She was a hard worker. My daughter is like so many other American girls that go about their life and they're just caught unawares from behind, dragged off the main road, trail, whatever, strangled, raped, murdered. Some have been found, some have not. I realized that deportation and illegal immigration has become such a big issue, and rightly so. We have Americans that are dying every day, and law enforcement don't want to give you the true numbers because they don't want the public to panic. In our town, we've had 2 murders by illegal immigrants. Maryland is a sanctuary state, and we have sanctuary cities. I was last told that crime in Maryland has increased by 850% over the last 4 years.
Oh, would that be since 2020 when it was COVID and all of the crime rates were down at historic lows?
Illegal immigrants that are criminals in our country at this very moment.
That's disinformation. Sorry, Mrs. Morin, that is disinformation.
The American people should not feel afraid to live in their own homes. When I was 14 years old, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but when I was 14 years old, a criminally insane man came into my house, kidnapped me.
That's right. I remember she told this story before.
60 miles towards the Canadian border while raping me at night. I have some idea of what it's like to be a victim of a violent crime where law enforcement did not believe that they were going to find me alive. So I have some understanding of what my daughter suffered. And when I was at that funeral home and saw my daughter's body, because the case, the hearing's not until April, I can't tell you in detail, but I can tell you this one thing, that my daughter suffered so terribly in a very brutal and violent way. And these type of immigrants should not be in our country. And because we have open borders, and because everyone is allowed in, and because the law is not being carried out at the borders, if they had done
that is not true, ma'am. With all due respect,
the 3 times
they
encountered this person that's allegedly accused of killing my daughter, they would have known that he had an Interpol warrant for murder in his country. We need to follow the laws that are already on the book.
He escaped.
We need to close our borders. We need to protect American families. We need
and she's
to protect
gone from
our
rally
women
to
and children,
rally,
which are
as
the
was
most
said. She's
vulnerable
been
in this country.
This is not the first time she's told this story. I've heard it a number of times.
That everyone is talking about. I do understand the military position, but I think that you should put American citizens first.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Pay your paycheck.
I'm sorry, with all due respect.
Pay taxes.
You are wrong.
We are the ones that believe that when you went into office that you were going to keep your word.
Trauma creates bigots, I guess.
The man or the woman for the job at the time that
Trauma
would uphold
creates
our values.
Bigotry
We are
in some people.
A constitutional republic for the people.
Yeah,
by
what's
the
happening?
people.
Yeah, exactly, Carla.
We, the
Why are people leaving El
have
Salvador?
put you, the people, into
Didn't the High
office.
Point missionaries fix
And you
everything?
should
Hootie's
be
fucking
doing
around there, I
everything
bet.
you
Yeah, I
can
wonder.
To protect us. That's why we put you there.
Babe, they are protecting us by not turning their guns on each
a thought
other.
that I had,
That is very importante.
Just today, coming on the train over here, is that when you look at a tree and you say, oh, that's an apple tree, you say that because you see that their apple is the fruit that's growing on the tree. It's the same thing with a man's character. It's by your actions that a person
I don't know,
knows
Neil. I don't think so.
what their character is like. And I think one of the reasons why 87% of Americans voted for Donald Trump is because they have seen the character by the fruit.
87? What are you fucking talking about? What the fuck is she talking about?
Thank you.
Get her out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Thank you, Ms. Morin.
Fuck you, Mrs. Morin.
Mr.
Go.
Reckland-Melnick.
Go. Grieve in peace.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, and I'm the Senior Fellow at the American Immigration Council.
Math.
At the Council, we have long studied the population of immigrants in the United States and provide detailed estimates of their demographics and economic contributions on our Map
Good morning,
the Impact
Oren.
website.
I hope you're doing okay.
Today,
wasn't
there
she
are at
sworn
least
in?
13 million
Fucking arrest
undocumented
that
immigrants
bitch.
in the
No, I'm
United
kidding.
States.
Totally kidding. I'm totally
President-elect
kidding.
Trump has promised a mass deportation campaign with the stated intent of rounding up and deporting every single one of them. So who are they? Well, most have been here for at least 15 years, having entered before the Obama administration. Over 4.8 million people have been here for 25 years or more, with no path to permanent legal status, no line for them to stand in. Most undocumented immigrants have spent decades living, working, and putting down roots, all at constant risk of deportation. Nearly all are either employed or attending school. Some have permission to work legally. Most do not, putting them at increased risk of exploitation. They are farm workers, meat packers, cooks, waiters, construction workers, factory workers, delivery people, home health aides, nurses, teachers, artists, writers, musicians, entrepreneurs, and yes, even
this
lawyers.
hearing has a content
Undocumented
warning
immigrants
for
are also more
traumatic
than their
stories
jobs.
of loss.
They are parents, spouses, partners, brothers and sisters, grandparents and grandchildren, loved ones and friends to millions of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. 5 million U.S. citizen children have at least one undocumented parent. In an average public school classroom of 25 children, at least 2 have an undocumented immigrant parent at risk of deportation. While President-elect Trump talks about targeting criminals, over 90% have no prior criminal record whatsoever. Of the small minority that do, the most common prior convictions are traffic offenses or immigration offenses. Efforts to ramp up deportations would sweep in tens of thousands of people each year who have no or minimal criminal legal system contact. We know this because this is what happened during the first Trump administration. When there were no enforcement priorities, everyone was an enforcement priority. And the single largest group of that increased arrests under the Trump administration was people with no criminal record. Beyond splitting families apart, a mass deportation campaign would be a costly mistake for American taxpayers. When we account for the enormous capital investment, infrastructure, and hiring necessary to arrest, detain, process, and remove 1 million people per year, we estimate that mass deportations would cost $968 billion in total, enough to instead construct 2.9 million new homes or fund Head Start for 79 years. Mass deportations would also cause economic chaos. As millions are expelled, the U.S. population and labor force would shrink. So too would the economy. Prices would rise in sectors with significant undocumented workforces.
It's a whole mindfuck.
Building, maintaining, and repairing houses would become more expensive, as would groceries, restaurants, travel, and childcare.
That's sad.
Every American would feel the pinch of inflation. Overall, we estimate that a mass deportation campaign would lead to a loss in total GDP of 4.2 to 6.8%, at minimum as much as the Great Recession. And just like then, many Americans would lose their jobs. Even an attempt to deport millions of people will have repercussions. After all, undocumented immigrants are not just producers, they're also consumers. Collectively, they hold over $250 billion in annual purchasing power. If millions are deported or otherwise forced to leave, American businesses will close not just from a lack of workers, but also from a lack of customers. A large-scale mass deportation campaign will also increase exploitation while it is carried out. Unscrupulous employers will dangle deportation over any of their workers who dare to push back and will have the full force of the U.S. government to support their threats. But mass deportation is not the only option. Congress could instead create a new path to permanent legal status, allowing many people already living here to file an application, go through a background check, pay a fee, and get their papers in order.
I love
When the council studied the
solutions,
impact
don't
of
you?
Reagan's 1986 amnesty, we concluded that legalization would be the cheapest federal workforce development and anti-poverty program for children in history. It would also raise overall wages, create new jobs, increase tax revenues, and create a level playing field and fair competition for U.S. workers. The president-elect's mass deportation plans would crash the American economy, break up families, and take a hammer to the foundations of our society by deporting nearly 4% of the entire U.S. population. But Congress has a choice. Instead of going down that path, we can instead crack down on exploitation,
Tony Schaefer always uses
strengthen millions of
monkeys as
families, and build
something.
American
He
prosperity
puts in
by
memes
providing
that we're using
undocumented
monkeys
immigrants
all the
a way
time.
to
I have
fix
no
their
idea
papers.
why, but whatever.
The choice is clear. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very
Brilliant
much.
witness.
Each of us now has
Another
5 minutes
brilliant
of questions,
witness.
and I'm going to start mine with Mr. Toure. Mr. Toure, are you undocumented? Pardon me, say it again.
Yes, Senator.
And why are you undocumented?
I came here from a civil unrest. I had no choice. My life was in danger. My mom told me the story when I was trying to get my driver's license.
How old were you when you came?
I came here when I was 7 years old.
What do you do today?
I'm a prosecutor. I represent victims of crimes and go after heinous people that have committed crimes against the Moran's family.
You've talked about Ms. Moran's situation a minute or so earlier, but the perpetrator of the crime against her daughter Rachel would be the type of person that you would prosecute?
Yes, Senator.
I think there is a fundamental difference we're being asked to acknowledge here. Is there a difference between Mr. Toure and the animal who attacked Ms. Moran's daughter? Of course there is. This man for a living is prosecuting criminals. This other individual is a clear criminal with a record. When we say massive deportation, should we consider them the same because they're both undocumented? Let me ask you this, Mr. Reichlin-Melnick. Most Americans, when you talk about the cost to the government in billions of dollars for this deportation, are going to say what most of us would fundamentally say, keep me safe. I don't care what the hell it costs. So is it realistic, if we're talking about a massive deportation, for us to be looking at federal budgets for financing?
I think it's important for people to understand that ICE already goes after people with criminal records all the time. And in fact, that has been the priority of the previous 2 to 3 or more presidential administrations, and is what Congress sets. So the overwhelming majority of people who would be the targets of a mass deportation campaign do not have criminal records. They are people who have been living otherwise law-abiding lives in this country, living, working, and in many cases paying taxes.
So you estimate, at least in one publication here, that the cost of massive deportation would be $316 billion?
At a minimum. In fact, if you look at it over the course of an 11-year operation, it could be as much as $1 trillion.
And that's for conducting sufficient arrest, detaining immigrants in mass, legal processing, and removal for those 4 categories.
That's right. And we're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars to carry out a deportation of 4% of the U.S. population.
So if you want to do a massive deportation to get Mr. Toure out of this country, you're talking about a massive amount of money that has to be spent.
Enormous sums.
And we hear from General Manner the impact it could have on our National Guard and military if they are given this responsibility. Have you taken that into consideration?
We weren't even able to account for the costs of the military, so you should consider our estimates to be conservative. The actual costs would likely be significantly higher because there are so many factors that we couldn't even attempt to estimate.
You're right. To carry out over 13 million arrests in a short period of time would require somewhere between 220,000 and 409,000 new government employees and law enforcement officers. Nearly impossible given current hiring challenges across law enforcement agencies. Could you explain that?
Well, right now, ICE only has about 8,500 officers in the entire agency, and less than 1,000 are assigned to fugitive operations, whose job it is to go out into the community and arrest people. But because the overwhelming majority of undocumented immigrants have no interaction with the criminal justice system, they have no criminal offenses, that means that to arrest them would require going out into the community, finding them, and rounding them up. And in order to do that would require an enormous investment in personnel, far beyond any law enforcement operation ever conducted in the United States history.
So if we are determined to remove Mr. Toure, the prosecutor from Philadelphia, from America and send him back to Sierra Leone or someplace like that, you're talking about massive amounts of money. If we are to focus on the truly dangerous people in this country to make sure that they are removed and should be, that is a lesser amount for sure.
That's right. In fact, if you look at data on ICE's own data, non-detained docket, which has already been cited by several members here, that is looking at about 1.2% or less of people who have any sort of serious violent offense. And of course, the resources involved there would be much smaller than trying to deport 13 million people.
Making a priority the dangerous people who are in this country or those who are here illegally and could be dangerous certainly is a much different assignment than saying massive deportations. Thank you, Mr. President.
And his ED meds.
Does anybody disagree with the following statement? America has a right to limit how many people
I'm pretty
can
sure
come
it
into
probably
our
rotted
country.
off like a long time ago.
No.
Nobody disagrees with that. Good. Mr.
I got a
Toure,
gotcha for you.
Very successful life. You have much to be proud
Come here. I
of.
got a gotcha for you.
During the 4 years of the Trump administration, were you ever, anybody suggest you should be deported?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. No.
Okay.
What's your problem?
Deporting the 1.2 million people who have been through the system?
Listen,
have a
bitch.
final order of removal. Do you support them leaving?
Yeah.
Senator,
Sure.
I'm
Or
a
whatever.
prosecutor.
I think it's every case by
I didn't ask you
case.
if you're a prosecutor. Do you support them leaving?
I support people that have committed serious crimes.
Do you support the people who have gone through the system, been denied, had their day in court, final order removal? Do you support them leaving?
If you
That's
have
a
committed
totally different
As a
question.
rule of law person.
If you have committed a serious crime in this country,
That's not the question. So is it your
What's the matter,
belief that
Lindsay?
every non-criminal in the world can come to America?
Would you stop it?
No.
How many people
Stop
want to
it.
come to America that are non-criminals? Probably hundreds of millions. And I understand
Can
why
we
it's a
deport
great
Lindsay?
country.
I agree,
So my
SB.
point
Good
is,
morning.
if you're not willing to say that we're going to deport you after you've had your full day in court, you're facing a final order of deportation, we're going to incentivize people to come forever.
Oh,
Mr.
my God. Shut
Melnick,
up,
is that right?
you fucking
How many
skin
people
bag.
did Ronald Reagan provide amnesty to?
Estimates are roughly 2.7 to 3 million.
How many illegal immigrants are in the country today?
I said roughly 13 million, although we
Okay,
don't know the
I
exact
would say
estimates.
that the last thing we want to do is give amnesty to people here now because we'll be overrun.
Oh, my God.
Mr. Arthur.
Why didn't you pass the
would
Langford
you
bill then, you
describe
stupid
the
cuck?
last 4 years as mass illegal immigration coming to our borders?
No.
I believe that that's fair characterization, Senator.
Of
Does
course he
anybody
would. He's a
disagree that
bigoted
the
Nazi,
last
I
4
think.
years
He looks
has
pretty,
resulted in mass
He looks
illegal
pretty nervous
immigration
about his
directed
position,
toward
you
America?
know?
Because if this is not mass, what the hell would be? Now, how do you answer mass illegal immigration? You start enforcing the laws, Ms. Moran said, and you start sending people back who've had their
Then
day
you
in
need-
court.
then, bitch,
you
you
can't
need to
answer
pass
the
that
question. I
bill.
respect you. You've been able to take the opportunity to
shut
make
up.
something of yourself, but we're passing on just constant disorder. If you
Oh, my
can't
God.
say
You
you should be
are
deported
constant
after you've had a
disorder.
full hearing, everything been available to, and you lose, and it's hard to say
Yeah,
you
but
need
they're
to go.
already here and we're
we
not
don't have an
overrun.
immigration
Hello, good
system.
point, Kathy.
General,
Hello.
how many people have
Yeah,
been
there's a
deployed
lot
to
of
the
P
border
tapes
by
about
governors
Lindsay. I
to
mean,
assist
there's just too much
and
P.
border security from the National Guard?
There might be
Sir,
a
I don't
poop
have
tape.
that information.
Okay, there's thousands. Is that illegal use of the National Guard?
It is not the illegal use of the National
It's legal, right?
Guard. That is correct.
Yeah, I
What are we
agree with you
talking
there.
about?
What's the largest cause of death in America for young people? Does anybody know?
Guns.
Mr. Arthur.
Guns.
Drug
Guns.
poisoning overdose deaths.
Coming from a drug called fentanyl.
Oh,
That
my
is correct,
God.
sir.
No,
Okay, where does that drug come
I'm
from?
looking that up. Fuck
That
that
drug, reports indicate that it's made from precursors that come from the People's Republic of China, assembled in Mexico, and largely smuggled into the United States.
shit. No, sent through the
General Manner,
Postal
do you
Service.
consider
Fuck
illegal
you, Arthur, you
immigration a
fucking
national
liar.
security problem?
I believe that it is something that ICE and CBT needs to address.
No, I ask you, is it a national security problem?
I think it's a concern, yes.
Okay, I do too. And they're the highest number of people on the terrorist watch list in our country today. At the end of the day, the number of people being killed in America by drug poisoning is coming from labs and cartels in Mexico. General Manner, does the president have the authority to attack a drug lab in Mexico that's making fentanyl to kill American citizens?
I am not a legal expert, Senator, and I do not know.
So here's what I would say. I think we
Well,
need to
here's
be
what I would
tough,
say. The leading cause of death for
compassionate,
young adults
but
aged
end this
15
crap.
to 24
If you're
are
trying to
unintentional
poison America, you're a
injuries,
drug cartel, your days are
homicide,
numbered.
suicide,
Coming after
cancer,
you,
and
hopefully
heart
working with
disease.
Mexico.
Unintentional injuries. In
If you've had
2020,
your
more than
full day
half
in
of
court
unintentional
and you
injury
lost,
deaths
it's
in this
time for
age
you to
group were
go
due to
and
drug
try to do
poisoning.
it right.
But that is all drug
we have
poisoning.
to break this endless cycle
Jesus
of having
Christ.
policies that
That was
entice
2020.
people to come to our country illegally, because that is the lack. We're losing sovereignty and losing control over our nation. There are too many people being hurt from this out of control system. So how do you deal with mass illegal immigration? You start with mass deportation of people who shouldn't be here. Mr. Toure, I think President Trump was pretty clear about DACA. But what do we tell the kids who've been brought here in the last year who are 7 years old? Do you ever break this chain?
Oh my God.
I'm hoping,
No,
Mr.
you
Chairman,
don't.
that once we regain control of our border and try to shut down the poisoning of America, we can have a logical,
You give
rational
kids that come
discussion
over here
about
with their parents a
dreamers
leg
and
up,
others.
and you actually help
But until
them
we control that border,
achieve
until we get control over
citizenship.
the
That's
crime
what you
coming
do,
into this
Lindsay.
country, into the poisoning of America, that discussion cannot happen. I've worked with you and others for really decades to fix a broken immigration system. The way the Biden administration's handled this border problem has created a nightmare for our country. And there's a reason 70% of the people want deportations. It's not because they're mean. They want to bring order to chaos. Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this hearing. And I know that you've worked with Senator Graham in the past on the Dreamers issue, and I hope that work continues. And I would start with what you said, Mr. Arthur, just about how we don't know yet how this is going to come down. And I do actually appreciate that Senator Durbin did this hearing, because I think we've got to start anticipating it and start having these discussions now. I personally don't want to have what happened last time when over a weekend I got, calls from a family in Lebanon who was ready to bring their little baby that they had adopted to the U.S. and were stopped practically at the airport with a little kid with a flag sweatshirt on. And we were eventually able, through officials in the past Trump administration, to get that baby adopted, and is now a thriving
prescription
child in the
opioids,
US.
natural and semi-synthetic,
Ms. Morin,
and
so appreciate
methadone,
you being here
heroin,
and your
and
strength,
synthetic opioids other than
coming forward.
methadone
I
are
believe
the
there is a way we could
drugs
do
that
this
cause
right.
the most
I'm not certain
overdoses.
how this is going to head, but I just want you to know
This is
that
like
based
full
on
of
the work
lies,
that was
Lee.
being
This
done
hearing,
on a
the
bipartisan basis,
right-wing witnesses are
at
full of lies.
this last
87% of
year,
Americans
that there are
voted for
people that
Trump,
wanna
is
get
what
to
the
this
lady
point,
said.
where we get this order at the border, where we put
I don't
the
know how she
funding
mathed it,
into
but-
enforcement, into things like Border Patrol agents. And this was legislation that I'm sure not everyone agreed with on both sides, but a proposed legislation that Senator Langford had negotiated that was supported by a number of people. And hopefully that can be at least a starting point for discussing it, even though it didn't go anywhere last year. And that was, increasing ICE detention capacity. It was looking at increasing border management. And I personally have taken a lot of grief for my support for COPS reauthorization and adding resources to law enforcement, which I think is so necessary with the fentanyl issues. But I think that there is a way. I note that in that agreement, that proposal that was made, as well as the proposal that Senator Rounds negotiated,
And
that Senator
we're
Graham
trying to
has
get
been
the
involved
funding
in
for
the
those
past
machines,
on,
right? That in the
have
Postal Service
citizenship
can
for
detect
Dreamers, on
fentanyl.
doing something about
And
the
they have machines that
temporary
can do that
status
at the
people,
border
on
too, but
looking
that's
at
part of
people who
that
have
bill.
not committed crimes
What the
and what we
fuck?
can do to make sure
They
our
should be
workforce
doing
is strong.
everything.
I
They should
think
have
there is
passed
a
that
path
bill.
here, and I'm just continuing to focus on where we can go. And I would ask you, Mr. Turry, and your story was moving in its own way. You've lived in the U.S. for 21 years. You're now married to an American citizen, have an 18-month-old son who's also a U.S. citizen. And I watched the president-elect's interview on Meet the Press this weekend, and he did talk about working with Democrats on the Dreamer issue, which I appreciated. But at the same time, then he talked about the only way not to break up a family is you keep them together and then you send them all back. I'm not certain he meant that with Dreamers, but what would happen to your family if you were sent back?
I mean, my family would face serious consequences. As I noted in my testimony, my wife is a U.S. citizen. Our entire family are U.S. citizens. Not only would this impact me on a personal level, but it would impact the U.S. citizens that have built their lives around me. U.S. citizens like my mother-in-law, who is legally disabled and has a
You know what?
brain
I'm going
tumor
to clip that, Lee.
requires her to take chemo in the United States. If my wife is not around to care for her, if my wife is not around to be there for her mother, it's going to cause serious hardship on her
BRB.
life and potentially cause her to lose her life. And also,
think the puppy
my
is
brother-in-law
awake.
has been
Awaketh.
serving in the Marines since he graduated from high school. He wants to re-enlist in the Marines next year. However, he has to choose between the love for his country or the love for his mom and come back home and take care of his mom. So not only is this impacting me on a personal level, it's impacting the people around us that have built their life around me. I've been in this country for so long, and to think that you can just remove an individual who United States citizens have built their lives around would not cause hardship on other people around them, it's just disheartening.
Okay. Mr. Reichlin-Melnick, could you go through just one more time the statistics, and then I'm out of time here, on if the focus was on enforcement, as well as the border and going after the people that we know have criminal records here, just that kind of money we'd be talking about if we wanted to focus our efforts on that group, as well as I would add to that, it's also going to be more border protection, which we know we need.
Yes, Senator. So we estimate that on average, a single deportation costs the U.S. government in today's money slightly under $24,000. So if we're looking at deporting 13 million people, that adds up to hundreds of
I'm actually
billions.
trying to get us to a solution that might work here. I remember when you were talking to Senator Durbin, and you talked about if you focused on the group that we know have criminal records that are still out there, how that kind of cost and what that would be.
I have to run the exact numbers for you. I'm happy to get those for you, but it is substantially less expensive than what President Trump has repeatedly said he would do, which is aim to deport every single person here, regardless of whether they have a conviction or not.
Okay, but so if we could get that and follow up later, because I think that there'd be some widespread agreement that if we're going to start somewhere, for one thing, we must begin with these most serious offenders that are out there and get the money set aside for that, do more at the border, try to do something positive here with Dreamers and people that are contributing so greatly to our economy, and trying to figure this out. We have tried this several times and had agreements with Democrats and Republicans in the Senate. Not everyone on the left, right, not everyone, but I'm just hoping we can get to a place like that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Klobuchar. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Arthur, you are with the Center for Immigration Studies, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
And that's a nonpartisan think tank, is it?
It is, sir.
Okay. The border is an open, bleeding wound, isn't it?
That's a fair way to characterize what's been going on for the last 4 years, sir.
The southern border is chaotic by design, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've been covering the border for 3 decades, and yeah, it's pretty chaotic.
Would it be fair to say that the broken southern border is man-made?
It would be fair to say that, sir, based on policies that have been implemented.
And that man's name is Joe Biden, isn't it?
That would be a fair assessment, yes, Senator.
Under President Biden, if you wait in line for legal immigration, you're a chump, aren't you?
When you look at the benefits that have been given to people and the speed at which they've been released into the United States, I would be chagrined if I were waiting.
You're a chump, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
General.
Yes,
You
sir.
believe in open borders, don't you?
I believe in the rule of law, sir.
Right. And it makes you angry that President Trump does not believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Senator, I'm not here to discuss immigration policy. I'm here to discuss whether or not we use the military to enforce it.
And it makes you angry that most Americans don't believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Not in the slightest, sir. Again, I am not here to discuss the immigration policy.
Yeah. Duty, honor, respect, you talked about that
Yes,
in
Senator.
your opening statement. On October 14th of this year, you went on CNN. I want to read you what you said, make sure I'm accurate. Here's what you said. President Trump is not like any sane leader. I'm very proud of General Milley for saying that President Trump is a total fascist. To Bob Woodward, if he, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is calling the president a fascist, I'm so proud of him for breaking that barrier. The challenge is because most MAGA Republicans, they don't understand what fascism is. The reality is that they are, in fact, fascists themselves. Did I read that accurately?
Senator, I am happy to discuss my personal perspectives with you separately at any time. That's not the purpose of the hearing today.
Did I read that accurately?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. You think you're smarter than the American people, don't you?
Absolutely not, Senator. I am here to discuss the use of the military as part of this mass deportation.
You think you're more virtuous than the American people, don't you, General?
What?
Senator, I am insulted
Fuck
by
you.
your comment.
Thank you.
Duty,
What
honor,
the
and
fuck?
respect. You talked about that in your opening statement,
What a
didn't you?
dick.
Yes, sir.
What a dick you are, Kennedy. Go suck my
Ms.
dick.
Moran said,
I'll
wrote
go
down her
worse,
words.
Paulina. Get down on
She
your
said,
knees,
by their
Kennedy, and
actions,
suck
you
my
know
big
what
dick.
someone's character is like. You agree with that?
Senator, for 35 years,
Put your
I served my
dentures in,
country
bitch.
with absolute honor and distinction, and I will continue to do so.
You agree with what Ms. Moran said?
Of course.
Yeah, imagine.
Mr.
Imagine saying that
Got a few
to
minutes
just
left.
a general. Like, just, I don't know.
23 seconds.
Well, actually, you let
No, fuck off.
Klobuchar
I'm giving you
go
20.
well
now
over,
it's
so I'm
20
assuming
seconds,
you'll extend me
cunt.
the
I'll
same
give you the
purpose.
same minute I gave to her.
You gave it a minute 20. I timed it.
Shut the fuck up.
You're
I watch you like a hawk, Dick.
You're a
Mr.
dick.
Melnick, Mr. Reichlin Melnick, you believe in open borders too, don't you?
I do not, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay. On November 1st, 2022, you tweeted, both Texas and Louisiana have their knives out for black immigrants. Do you remember that tweet?
I don't, but it's quite possible.
What Texans,
Who cares?
it's not only possible, it happened. You're not denying it, are you?
No, I'm
He's saying he doesn't recall it.
referring
What
to the
Texans?
context.
Who
I
are you
actually
talking
don't
to?
know the
Who
context.
are you talking to about who in Texas had their knives out for black immigrants?
Guessing the context, but my suspicion is that it has to do the Attorney General Ken Paxton and the Attorney General of
Give me a name.
He just did.
You don't have a name, do you?
I just said Ken Paxton.
You don't have a name, do you?
I just said Ken Paxton.
Said Ken Paxton.
All right, how about Louisiana? You said Louisiana has its knives out for black immigrants. Who in Louisiana were you talking about?
Who's the Attorney General?
Again, I'm not certain. That was 2 years ago, and as I'm sure you know, much has happened in the last 2 years.
Well, did you say it?
Again, I do not remember the context.
He's trying so hard.
You said somebody had their knives out from Louisiana for black immigrants, but you don't know who they were.
Come on,
You just said it.
Foghorn Leghorn.
I said the Attorney General of Louisiana and Texas, and I believe this referred to specifically lawsuits brought and arguments that were made in court that the arrival of Haitians
I'm out of
and
time,
others
but I want to get you
inherently
on the
dangerous,
record.
which was
You
not
Thank you very much, Senator.
believe
Appreciate
that the
your
Attorney
questions.
General at that time in Louisiana had his knives out for black immigrants. That's your testimony.
Given their
Thank you, Senator
litigation
Kennedy.
conduct, yes.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Holy shit.
We have a broken immigration system. This was acknowledged over a decade ago when I first arrived in the United States Senate. And we actually, in 2013, we had a bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform bill that addressed the issues of all of the immigrants who are working in various large sectors of our economy, i.e. in the ag sector, where the Chamber of Commerce are concerned about what we're doing with immigration policy, where we dealt with the undocumented immigrants who are working and paying taxes for which they get absolutely, you know, they're paying the Social Security, Medicare, they don't get those benefits at all. So we have a broken immigration system. We actually had the two senators who are sitting here, the chairman and the former chair of the committee, who are part of a comprehensive immigration reform. So I don't know why we cannot come to some sort of an agreement to deal with the massive, complex issues that confront us. So that is what I'm calling for. Until we make a commitment to comprehensive immigration reform, pointing fingers at the Biden administration or any other administration is not going to get us anywhere fast. And in fact, every administration has had border enforcement policies. You may not like the policies. For example, I certainly didn't support the Trump policy of separating thousands of children from their parents without keeping track of who their parents were. All I'm asking for is a rational, reasonable, humane immigration policy. So that was what I thought the comprehensive immigration bill in 2013 was. I didn't agree with all of the provisions, but some of us worked really hard on it, and Senator Graham, as I mentioned, was part of that. So that's what I think we ought to be focusing on. Now, General Manner, I'm glad you're here because we have a president who has said many times that he intends to use the military to do immigration policies, to effect his immigration policies. And General Manner, you said that that is going to have a very negative impact on readiness, for example, because our military, including the National Guard, they are not trained for immigration enforcement. So as the chair currently of the Armed Services Committee's Readiness Subcommittee, I share your concerns. By the way, maybe you can go over again a little bit more. What kind of infrastructure would be needed to enforce immigration deportation on up to 4% of our population? What kind of infrastructure would we need in order to effect that?
I have to defer to the other experts on the panel.
Okay, well, then that would be Mr. Ragnick-Melnick. Am I
Yes.
pronouncing your name? Would you like to go into some of that?
Senator, in order to carry out that form of operation would require hiring tens of thousands of new law enforcement agents, would require building dozens, if not hundreds of new detention centers, hiring thousands of new judges, all at a cost of hundreds
Eric
of
Prince
billions
is
of
like,
dollars,
sign me
potentially up to
Where
or
do
more
I
than
start
$1 trillion
building these
over the course of
detention
more than a
centers?
decade.
Do you support comprehensive immigration reform?
I do.
Does anybody on this panel not support comprehensive immigration reform that really gets to some of the problem, well, that really addresses the issues that we're facing? Anybody on the panel?
Senator, I have to say, comprehensive immigration reform is not a defined term, and as with all legislation, the devil's in the detail.
Excuse me, you can look at the 2013 bill, and that had some of the kinds of, that would be what I would describe as comprehensive. It was not the answer, it was not the be-all and end-all, but it was pretty comprehensive, wouldn't you say?
I was actually on the bench at the time that bill was introduced. I was an immigration judge and not involved in legislation.
Oh, I didn't read it.
It was, trust me,
I don't read.
when I say that it was about as comprehensive
I'm an
immigration reform
immigration
as we have
judge,
managed to do.
but I didn't
in
read a
over
bill
a
that the
decade
Congress
at
was
this point, and
considering
that's
regarding
more,
immigration.
I think
Okay.
what we need to do. And I
Okay.
don't think there's anybody
Good to
here
know.
who supports something called the open borders, because as I said, every single administration has had border enforcement policy. You may not agree with all of that. I don't think there's anybody sitting here
yeah.
who supports open borders, whatever the heck that means. But we all know that we need to have border control. We need that. But what are we going to do about the 11 million to 13 million undocumented people here who are very much a part of our community and the fabric of many, many communities, not to mention that there are
we need to just fucking be adults
U.S. citizens that are part of their families. And are we going to start busting them up? What's that going to do? So, before we start throwing out all kinds of so-called solutions, I think we need to think about what are we going to do to have a rational, reasonable immigration policy, and that's what I'm calling for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We could deport him for different
Senator
reasons.
Rono. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to each of you for being here today. Ms. Morin,
Oh,
I am
no.
so sorry for your loss.
Oh, no.
I know that's been
here
a
we
very
go.
difficult
Oh, they did? Oh, and he
for
didn't
you and
read
your
it?
family,
Oh, my
and
God.
this truly is a season of
This
sorrow
truly
for
is
you
a
all,
season
and
of
I recognize that.
I want to write
I find
you a
it so
card
interesting.
and
This
send
open
it
border
after this
policy that we've
hearing.
seen is not a compassionate policy. I've talked to people that work with human trafficking and sex trafficking, and what is happening to women and
Oh, my
children
God, Jim.
is abhorrent. And we all are fully aware of that. Mr. Chairman, I appreciated your remark that we should deport those that are truly
Okay,
a
say goodbye
danger
to Ted
Americans.
Cruz,
I think
Melania,
that's-
Rep. Victoria
that's accurate.
Sparks,
I don't
et
think
al.
there's anything
she's the
anyone
Christmas
would
tree.
disagree
Oh, my
with
God.
that. We've all seen
my
the
God, look,
uptick
y'all.
in violent crimes,
Violent-
such as Ms.
violent-
Morin and her
violent
family
crimes.
have
I'm dressed like a
experienced.
Christmas tree,
and
y'all.
this is the
Don't I
reason
look
I
cute?
reintroduced
You can see my little
Clear
titty has
Act
been pushed up
this year, which
Wait, what's
would
going on there?
enable local law enforcement, when they apprehend
What's going on
someone
her
who's in the country
décolletage?
illegally, to detain them and then call on ICE to deport them.
She have
and then the
hives or
federal
something? What
government
happened?
have
Did
to
she get
repay
punched in the
that
chest
local
or
law
something? What
enforcement
the hell?
agency
Justin Bieber.
for what they've spent.
Oh, yeah, Justin Bieber.
In
That's
that apprehension, that detention. And we should pass this bill today.
We should pass a bill. Wait,
and
what
that
bill?
would be
I
a
thought you
good
had a
thing
bill-
for this
what,
committee
Langford?
to be doing this last
tanning.
week. Pull
Yeah,
it
yeah,
up,
there you're right.
Put it on the hotline.
She touched it.
And run it.
I told
Is there
you not to touch
anybody
it
on this panel
until
that
it dried,
disagrees
Marcia.
with deporting
What the hell?
criminal, illegal aliens?
Now
Raise
look, your
hand if
face
you
doesn't
disagree
match
with
your
that.
neck.
Everybody agrees.
You need one
those
shade
that have committed
darker.
crimes
What the hell?
against our citizens should be
Look at, she has
deported.
actual claws.
Mr. Arthur, I want to come to you. Talk for just 1 minute about why it is important that we empower local law enforcement to carry out the job.
I do
that
appreciate
the
she has a
federal government
modesty
has
cover
not
on
done.
that
Well,
cleavage.
you actually heard Mr. Reichlin Melnick talk about how few ICE enforcement removal officers there are. There's always going to be a set number of those individuals. When you allow police officers who are involved in their community, who are the first line, actually
Snitches get stitches.
putting hands on criminals, they're going to be the people who are best able to pull those individuals out of the community.
Are
It's
you
important
kidding
to
me?
note, Senator,
So that's
that
what
when
you want to
talk
do?
about
Oh,
immigrant crime,
whoa,
Ms. Morin's situation is horrible, and every crime is horrible. So much of that immigrant crime takes place in immigrant communities. Sanctuary jurisdictions do nothing but punish the immigrants that
Girl,
those individuals
bullshit.
that live in
Girl,
those communities.
you
that those criminals are
cannot
sent
have
back
law
to. So that's why it's
enforcement in a
absolutely crucial.
community
I
split their time
appreciate that.
between
So
deportation
I think we should move forward with my legislation, Mr.
and
Chairman.
civil, crime,
Mr.
usual
Franklin
crime.
Melnick, I'd like to
My
come to you. I
God.
want to talk about some of your tweets. You've been active on X.
So
Here's
what?
one.
Oh, here's
this
one.
is
I
bad
printed it out in
analysis that
big
bears
print.
little resemblance to the facts. The Remain in Mexico program was
Citizens
very
are allowed to have
successful.
their
It was a human
opinions.
rights
It's called free
disaster
speech.
that
That's what I
fed
would say.
people to the
Yeah, that's my
cartels
free
with
speech.
not much impact on border crossings. Plus, Biden ended it when it was barely in use at all.
Okay.
So
That's correct.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. So, do you still believe
been
that Remain
active
in
on the
Mexico
X.
was not very
You're
successful?
straddling the
It
X,
wasn't.
aren't
In fact,
you,
it was
darling?
one of a suite of programs that went into effect in 2019.
love this
about
guy.
4 or 5
Aaron,
different
you
ones
are a
over the course
boss.
of
Do
about
you
8
believe
months.
it was a
You're
human
a
rights
boss, bitch.
disaster?
I love you.
Yes, and I can tell you the stories of the women sent
Make
back
sure you
by the
follow
United
him.
States
May I
to
please
Mexico.
tell
Make sure
you
you
stories
follow him
of
on
Mexico
X. I'm
because of
going
that.
to.
people that were raped along the way, people that have been
And we sent them back to
That's
those
right.
traffickers.
dealers and
Remain in
drug
Mexico
dealers.
gave
Okay.
people to the cartels, and we turned
Remain
our
in
eyes away from
Mexico,
them.
Remain in Mexico was successful, and
No,
we
it
all know it.
wasn't.
Now, let me
Ha
talk to
ha.
you about another tweet
You lose,
that
bitch.
you put up. There are not 320,000 missing
Yeah, they do
children.
got the X
That
running up
number
on their
is a
internet
false
down there, y'all. They do.
interpretation
Yeah,
of
they
a DHS OIG report that said that 32,000
Thank you for reading all my
people who
tweets,
entered
bitch.
as unaccompanied children from 2019 to 2023 were ordered deported for missing court, and ICE failed to file charging documents for 291,000 more.
That's right.
Now,
That's an accurate
you
description
know,
of the OIG
that
report.
seems
this
like a
is a
fact.
human rights disaster because what we have heard is the DHS Inspector General, and what they have testified is that they found 32,000 migrant children did not show up for their court date, and an additional 291,000 migrant children never received notices to appear.
That's correct. That's what my tweet
Is it
said.
your testimony that DHS does in fact know the whereabouts of every single one of these 320,000 children, and they're just not telling people where these children are?
No, because that's not DHS's function here. It's also Office of Refugee Resettlement. It's
It is
not their
DHS
job to go
and
out and find every
ORR.
single people.
It is DHS and ORR.
I guess
And
the broader
what we
point is
know,
somebody isn't missing
sir,
if no one's
what
looking
we
for them.
What we know is that through reports
Yeah, through
that have been
things that have been
reporting, even the
said.
New York Times, many
yeah,
of
I'm
these
just throwing the
children
New York Times
are
in there.
in abusive situations.
Right.
They are working in plants, and indeed, DHS
What?
says
What's her point?
that you've got this 320,000 migrant children that cannot be
God.
located. That is a human rights
Oh, my
disaster.
God.
I yield back.
Senator
I'm
Blackman, they did
picking-
not say they can't be located. They said that they had not even attempted to file
My time has
charging
expired. I
documents,
yield
which
back,
is a very
Mr.
different
Chairman.
thing.
I'm going to give the witness an
Yeah,
opportunity
give the
to
witness
finish
an
his
opportunity to
remarks.
fully
Just want to
state
know,
his
the
answer.
DHS report did not say these children were missing. It said that ICE had failed on the job to actually start the court process for them. If ICE filed the court documents, many of those people would be living at the exact address that the ICE told them. It's just ICE has not filed the charging documents. It's not that they're missing. And of course, exploitation is very real, and we've called for more labor enforcement to ensure it doesn't happen.
Senator Padilla?
So sit down,
Thank you, Mr.
Christmas
Chair.
tree
And
cunt.
The fact that we're still discussing, debating.
I love you, Alex.
The struggle to reconnect children who were separated from their parents more than 4 years ago
There's the baby pets
Today.
that they rescued.
should tell us a lot about what to expect in the next
Little
administration.
piggies and
I think
goats.
it's worthy of further conversation, maybe a different hearing, a different day to focus on that. Just as a reminder for folks that are observing today's hearing, that the stated topic of today's hearing is, quote, how mass deportations will separate American families, harm our armed forces, and devastate our economy. So I will attempt in my questions to bring us back to the focus of
There's
this
a little
hearing
baby
today.
pig in the back of the truck that
But
escaped
first,
the
I want to point out
fire.
a couple of notes that I've taken
And
throughout
there's
the
the
hearing.
little sheepies
In
or
hearing
goats.
from
And there's
my
a goat.
colleagues on
That's
the committee,
definitely
the
a goat.
issues they've raised, the questions they've raised, to underscore a statement I
city
made at the
girl. I
outset,
don't
which is
know.
how complex this conversation in this policy area is. And so it requires thoughtful and nuanced solutions. Senator Graham was talking about the numbers.
Senator
and
Grandma,
questioned
that's what
witnesses
the
of
caption
would you be opposed to someone who has had their day in
Look at
court
that fucking fire.
and has been denied a further stay in the United States after having had their day in court. That sheds light on process.
Thank you, Oren.
Due
That's his
process,
handle,
often
Reichland
lack
Melnick.
thereof. Representation in the process, lack of representation in the process. I'm for a process and finality of a process, a finality, an answer, clarity about your future
hell yeah, Griffey.
in a matter of weeks and months, not years and years, but that requires investment in the process by the federal government, in hearing officers, in immigration judges. So let's just lay that out if we're going to be genuine and serious about tackling the backlogs and the issues. Second, man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard fentanyl in this committee, serious problem, but irresponsible in how it's misportrayed so often in immigration conversations. Fentanyl needs to be addressed, fentanyl needs to be stopped. Its illegal importation needs to be tackled. But if we're going to do it thoughtfully and seriously, let's look at what the Customs and Border Protection Agency tells us. 80% of individuals who are prosecuted and convicted for bringing fentanyl into this country are United States citizens. Happy to share the link, folks. Happy to share the report. So if that's a concern, then let's address the heart of the concern.
Not contained at all.
And not just
Bad.
use it as a soundbite to further attack immigrants. Oh, by the way, did you know that the numbers at the southern border are way down? People talking about this crisis at the border. We always need to do more to ensure a safe, orderly, and humane border. But some of these numbers that are being tossed around are not what's happening today because of President Biden's policies this last year. So let's be intellectually honest with ourselves and the public.
Yep, my mom was
that being
a
said,
nurse.
Mr. Reichland
That's what
Melnick,
she
you're
could
pretty
be.
popular today. I have a question for you as well. As you know, and you've referenced, the largest mass deportation effort in U.S. history was President Eisenhower's Operation Wetback. I referenced it in my opening statements. During that operation, more than 500,000 Mexicans and many United States citizens were deported. And as far as anybody can tell, Operation Wetback did not achieve its intended effects of increasing employment rates or wages for U.S. workers. Former President Trump has said that he planned to model his deportations on Operation Wetback. Now, you testified today about the expected negative economic impacts of mass deportation, including the rising costs of food. Some estimates say food prices are going to go up 19% based on this alone. In what world does food become cheaper with mass deportations?
Mass deportations would not cause food prices to become cheaper. The exact opposite would occur. In fact, a single worksite raid in 2018 under the Trump administration at a beef plant in Tennessee led to ground beef prices rising by 25 cents for the year that the plant was out of operation following the raid.
And just to follow up to that question, I'm cognizant of my time, Mr. Chairman. I've referenced so many industries that have significant percentages of undocumented workforce in them. I think chief among them is the agricultural industry, not just nationally, but particularly in the state like California, the largest agricultural producing state in the nation, where estimates are
I know what
well
you're
more than
talking about,
75% of the workforce
I've been hurt.
is undocumented. I hear from growers, as do all my colleagues. I hear from labor contractors, as do all my colleagues, about how easy it is for them to recruit United States citizens to do the work in the fields. And let me tell you how easy it is. It is not. There's a reason that the agricultural industry relies on immigrants, including so many undocumented immigrants, to help keep the food supply chain going, keep food on the tables of American families. And I invite my colleagues, if you want to get a taste of what it's like and the difficulties for the recruitment, to spend a day in the fields, like I did in 2022, picking radishes and parsley, like Senator Booker did in 2023. Happy to work with growers and farm workers to provide that opportunity for all of you. Follow-up question, Mr. Reichlin-Melnick. Just briefly describe to us what it would look like if the agricultural industry were suddenly to lose half of its workforce.
I mean, if it was overnight, the U.S. food supply would crumble. Undocumented workers work across the agricultural sector, from picking crops in the field to meat processing to poultry processing to dairy to everything in between. And these are workers that without them, our food supply would drastically diminish. I'm not saying that there's no jobs Americans will do. Of course, that's not true. Americans have done those jobs in the past, but it could take decades before we got enough workers to replace the experience
Americans
and the knowledge
wouldn't
of some
work
of these
for those
workers who have been
wages.
doing the jobs for 20,
Period.
30 years. It is not something that can just be replaced overnight and will cause severe impact to the U.S. food supply.
Or I should say,
Violent
privileged white
criminals,
people
let's go
won't
after
work
them.
for those,
The
you
vast
know, like,
majority
come
of
on.
immigrants and undocumented immigrants
It's ridiculous.
are contributing so much to this country. They deserve better.
People take such
Senator Tillis?
for granted in
Thank
our
you, Mr.
food
Chairman.
supply
I
and
wanna
the
paint
people
a
who make it
picture
happen.
of the crisis at the border and what the incoming administration has to deal with. Roughly 8 million people came into this country illegally from the outgoing administration's border policies. 8 million. Does anyone find
Yeah,
that
of course.
acceptable? I'm going to give you all a chance to answer
course.
that question shortly. The American people
But they don't know what they're
elected a
signing
new
up for.
president in large part to secure
Owners
the
aren't going to
border and
raise
deport people who
salaries
came
unless they can
illegally
raise
under their
prices.
predecessor. So to my Democratic colleagues, how many illegal
that's right,
immigrants
he did.
being deported by the new administration would you find objectionable?
Oh my God, stop
Mr.
it.
Melnick, I'll ask you, 1 million?
I think 1 million would be a disaster.
2 million?
Again, considering we're talking about law-abiding people who've been here for decades, I think that is enough that would have severe negative ramifications for the United States.
3 million?
Same answer.
5 million?
Same answer,
What's
even
the
worse
matter? You're
ramifications.
going-
Do you
Yeah, you're
think it
going
would be
up.
fair or moral to deport any illegal immigrants?
Yes, I'm not a supporter of open borders, as I said before.
Well, I'm kind of curious what your position
Yeah,
was
small bag of
back
radishes,
during the
now
Obama
$35.99.
administration when that's exactly what he did. I'm not reading what Trump intends to do. I'm reading exactly what President Barack Obama did when he came into office and
What?
deported
Are we talking
nearly
about Obama?
5
Is
million
he
people,
president? Wait a minute.
in excess of 3 million
What
people.
happened?
So at that time, were you involved politically or in this space at the time that Obama was here? How old were you back then?
I was a graduate of law school and was working at the time.
Were you opining on deportations at that time?
I was not.
Do you believe that President Obama made a grave, horrible, inhumane mistake by deporting those folks?
Well, it wasn't
that
5
came
million
in under
people.
the Bush administration?
It wasn't
What?
5 million people. When we're looking at
It was over 3
internalized
million.
deportations.
So let's not split hairs.
Actual numbers are closer to 1.5 internal ICE deportations. And
But
very
you
well,
said that
it
was
depends on the
immoral.
portfolio.
So you said President Obama was immoral and inappropriate to deport those million people. Is that what I heard you say?
There were many people that
it's
were
it's a
deported
yes, no
under his
question.
administration
You
that should
can't
not
be-
have been. Yes.
Look, I don't normally get into these antagonistic.
Oh, really? You don't? Fuck
sorts
off.
of
Oh my
discussions
God, I
here,
fucking hate
but
these guys.
it needs to be said
I'm telling you right
because
now.
you just
Yeah,
a
they
month
just- they
ago
can't let
said at
go.
the turn of the
They cannot
century,
let go.
Jim Crow was legal.
It's just because-
Lynchings
yes,
were at
it's
their
because
highest
he's
level
black
in the
and they
U.S.
are
in
racist
U.S. history.
at their
Women
core.
couldn't vote.
Sorry.
The infant mortality rate was
Sorry.
165 per
Well,
1,000.
in this case,
and
Max,
the average
it
life
could be
expectancy
both.
was 47.
It could be.
Oh, and we also had quasi-open borders. That part wasn't bad.
What are we talking about?
So let me tell you what
the
I
fuck are
tell
we
everyone
talking
who
about?
comes in this room and has the polarizing testimony, sir, that you have had.
Excuse
You're
me?
a part of the problem. I'm a part of
Say
a
you're
group of
offended.
people here who,
Say you're
who
offended.
have said, as the president
Say
did
you are
incidentally on
offended.
Sunday,
I'm offended
he
for
believes
him.
there should be a path for
I just
dreamers.
sent him a love
We're
tweet for
demonizing
all of us,
President
by the way.
Trump for something he may or may not do, but he has said to his Republican base he believes that there should be certainty for dreamers. He's also said that we have to have a secure border. And as long as the border is not secure, people like me who try to treat people who are in the state that they are here with respect and understanding some of the issues that,
is this what you
that Mr. Padilla
deem
brought
respect?
up,
I don't think you know what the
people
definition
to
is,
go
sir.
into their corners and get nothing done. That is why Chair Durbin has not been able to fulfill the promise on Dreamers every single year he's tried for the last 20, because people like you make it impossible to have let me finish, and then I'll let you speak as long as the chair wants to.
Open borders
have a rational discussion about it. Because if we don't secure the border, I can't get a path to citizenship for the DACA population. If we don't secure the border, I can't get Democrats and Republicans to come together and give certainty to the dreamer population. Are there any dreamers in the room? Raise your hand if you are. All right. Well, this is a part of the problem, ladies and gentlemen. You have an incoming Republican president who just said as late as Sunday that he's prepared to give you certainty. But we have people here demonizing him for asking the reasonable question of can't we all agree that we need to secure the border? So if you are sincerely, I don't know how you make your money. I don't care what your political motives are. But number one, I would really appreciate it to say, if you would go out on social media and say that the President Obama did a horrible disservice to those people he deported, and he's as long-minded as every other Republican who said we've got to secure the border to deport people.
Get over
you can't have one
the
being
Obama
okay
guy.
and the other one not being okay. And if you don't come to the table and recognize in a world where, 100 years ago, it was probably safe to have a quasi-open border because the world order was changing and we emerged as a world leader.
Now.
But today,
Give one
we
for
have
Biden
terrorists
while
that
you're
can
over
fly
there.
from the
I got
Middle
an
East,
extra box of
land in
tissues for
Mexico,
you.
and come across the border in less than
My
24
God, these white
hours.
men.
We're not living in Ellis Island anymore. We've got a problem that can't be solved.
Everybody's
and people like
coming
you
in and taking
are
our
creating
women.
more obstacles to people like me who are willing to take hits from my own party to satisfy what people like Donald Trump want to get done. Thank you.
Take over my country. I gotta go poop.
May I respond?
I gotta poop. I'm out.
No. Thank you, Senator. It's my time, so I'm going to speak. First of all, I want to thank all of the witnesses. I think we're actually going to start making progress on securing the border and on a sensible and humane policy. I want to thank folks from the immigrant community and Dreamers who I know are here and acknowledge my respect for the contributions you've made to our country, and I don't want to lose the benefit of that. As I've listened to my colleagues, I think it's not that complex. Number one, I think there is agreement we have to have a secure border. You can't have a country that doesn't have a control over its border. Second, I think there's broad consensus that criminals who are here should be deported. Ms. Moran, I just want to acknowledge, as we all have, the incredible life you've had, the loss of your daughter and your own experience. People who do that, they shouldn't have gotten in and they shouldn't be here. And if they are here, they should be in jail. Third, we have the question of people whose status has been determined, but it took so long for that status to be determined, in many cases years and years, that they become an integral part of their community and they put roots down here and they haven't committed a crime. This is where we don't have consensus. There's a view among some, and I think the President-elect Trump has this view, that if you are here illegally, no matter how long it took for that adjudication to occur and no matter what your roots are.
I believe
then
Stephen
you
Miller
should go
said
back.
still being
Senator
here
Graham was
illegally is a
indicating,
crime. I believe he said
of
that in
you
public a
if
number of
you've been
times. I could be
adjudicated,
wrong,
a
but
fair is
I'm
fair and
pretty
you should
sure
go
I've
back.
heard that.
There's another point of view, and that is that if you have been here and we had a system that didn't adjudicate in any kind of timely way, and you have been working, I'll put it in very specific terms, on a farm in Vermont for 7 or for 8 or for 9 years, and
Maybe
you
my
become
farm.
a contributing member to the community
Just
and the
kidding.
economy. There's another approach one could take where you might pay a fine, you might have to make amends for the fact that you came here illegally, but there'd be an acknowledgement of the contributions you've made, the roots you've established, and what the harm to the community would be. And that certainly would be the case in Vermont, just speaking about agriculture. I just can't imagine, actually I can't imagine, I've talked to some farmers who, if they lost their labor, would lose their farm because cows don't milk themselves and they are not able to get local labor to do that. So there is a real potential here for us to find common ground and get something done that is securing the border, that is deporting criminals, that is making judgments about allowing people the option of paying a fine, where there would be a deterrent.
Well, I mean, they
as
will,
long as we
Kathy,
have
so,
a secure
and we will,
border.
so I
Yeah,
guess
Ms.
we'll just have to
Moran, I
be vigilant.
just want to ask you, you've suffered so much, and I want to express to you my gratitude for your advocacy on behalf of others. But if we had a secure border, you're advocating for that, if we have, and that keeps criminals out, right? Would it be in conflict with what you think would be a reasonable outcome for like dreamers, for instance, kids who came
Or
here
even
with their
just, you
parents,
know,
who've not
immigrants
committed
without
any
a
crime,
criminal
who've
history.
become parts of the community. Would that be something that you would see as a reasonable outcome to find a way for them to have a legal status?
Yes.
A couple of things from listening to everyone speak. One, as an American citizen and not a politician, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but just what I'm hearing is the bottom line is profit.
Oh
To an
my
American
God.
citizen, they're hearing you're putting lives,
Oh my God.
you're putting profit above
No,
American lives.
no, honey.
So
No.
that's the message you're communicating.
Oh boy. Well,
For
then
me
you
personally,
have poor media literacy.
our country is made of immigrants. We have 250 years or more of immigrants that have come to this country and have built the country to what it is today.
Well,
And
actually,
we are
one
descendants
could say
of those
that
immigrants.
the folks who were enslaved
The issue is
built
having
the
an open
infrastructure of
border
this country.
that allows
So
an
there's that.
invasion
But, yeah.
of people that compromises our national security because our borders, we don't have enough border agents.
Well, then they should have
to
passed the
stem
Langford bill, sweetie.
flow
Right.
of
Sweetie pie.
immigrants. But then
Honey bun.
also, they bypassed the law to
Schmoopy.
speed up them coming in. And in doing so, they
Schmoopy, they
miss
didn't do
all
that.
the
They
criminals that
didn't-
are
oh,
coming
boy.
into our country.
She doesn't really know how
So
any
I
of this
think
works.
we need to put those laws back into place and to practice
give you a
so we can catch them at the border. And then I think that we should work
I love the word
towards,
calumny. I don't think
those
that's how
that
you
have
say it, but I
come
love
to the
that
country. If it's illegal, the
I mean, I
very
don't
word
like what it
itself
means,
means
but, you know.
unlawful. So are
So
we saying
she's a
it's
one-note-
okay
she's a one-note
to come to
pony.
America in an unlawful way?
Oh, shit, man.
There has to be
oh.
some kind of
Why do I not get-
line,
I get-
precedence of what is lawful and
think
what
I'm in
isn't
that
lawful.
Los Angeles thing.
I thank you for that. I mean, the heart of, at least as I hear what you're saying, is that we
Yes,
have to have a
please,
secure
Carla,
border
let's
in the
deport.
first
Let's
place.
initiate
Yes.
immediately.
Yeah, well, thank you again. My time is up, and I'm going to, are you next? Polly? Senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. I have to say, I'm kind of amazed that we're holding this hearing. To me, it's remarkable
it's
that the
cotton-headed
idea of actually, as you were just
muffin.
saying, Ms. Moran, the idea of
Cotton-headed
enforcing our laws,
ninny
protecting
muffin.
our border, securing our streets from criminals, it's
a
amazing that that's
cotton-headed
controversial at all.
ninny
And it says something a lot about the other side of the dais
Nothing.
that we're having this
I don't
hearing
know. What
today.
is it thing?
Let me just ask you, Mr. Reifland-Melnick. I mean, is it really
Yeah,
such a
hold
bad
up my
idea
sign. Oh, yeah,
to
show
deport
this-
people like the
this young
criminal
boy.
who killed this young man? This is Travis
dear.
Wolf. He was 12 years old.
I think
when
Travis
he was
Wolf's
killed.
family has said,
He
don't
was
use
mowed
our
down,
son.
and I do mean mowed down in a car
My God.
by an illegal immigrant, 12 years of age, walking along a sidewalk in my state of Missouri, mowed down by an illegal immigrant
God.
who I think also had a prior criminal record. Is it such a bad idea to deport the person who killed him?
Any person who commits a heinous crime should suffer the consequences under the law.
Good.
I
what
thought he
about
was gone too,
Officer
Carla.
David Lee? Officer David Lee was killed in Missouri just
Look
a few
at all
months
these
ago
people who
by another
tragically were
illegal immigrant,
killed.
once again in a car, who used
What do you have
it
to
as
say
a
about
lethal
that,
weapon
sir?
to
You're
ram
responsible
him
for
and
their
kill
deaths.
him.
That's really
is
what
it so
Josh is giving
wrong,
energy
such a
on
bad
that.
idea to deport the illegal immigrant who killed
Deport
this
all
good
the
man?
bad drivers.
Again, any
Even if
person
they're
who
from
commits
here.
an
Get 'em
awful
outta here.
act should face the full force
Send
of
them
the
to
law. and
Sweden.
have
Had
never said
multiple
otherwise.
stabbings in the state of Missouri at laundromats in O'Fallon,
Multiple?
Missouri, where
How
innocent
many? How
civilians
many?
were going
Give me
to
data.
do their laundry
Give
of
me
an
data,
evening
bitch.
and were attacked
Give me
with
data.
knives,
Give me data.
slashed, bled, stomped upon.
On their
Should the
laundry.
illegals who did that, should they
sorry.
not be
I'm not making fun of that.
As I said,
Oh, what the fuck? What happened? Whoa. PBS,
in-
control yourselves.
immigrants over
What the
one
fuck is wrong with you, PBS?
saw this illegal immigrant
I'm going to fucking
deported?
kill these people.
they should face the consequences. Are a very small
Damn it.
population
Okay,
that
hold on,
President Trump
everybody.
is
I'm
promising to
gonna
deport.
save us.
Well, let's talk
13
about the
million
rest
people.
of the people
Hold
who
on,
you
I'm gonna
don't
save
want to
us.
be deported.
Shit.
You said in an article that you wrote recently,
All right, now it's
new
I'm
report
gonna have a
shows
backup just
costs
in
of
case it
devastating
blips out
costs
again.
of
Sorry.
mass deportation. You wrote this in October. Do you remember this piece?
Yes, that is a summary of our report. That we
Yeah.
published
So
in
this
October.
piece, and it's also in your written testimony, you talk about how
really
much
feel
the
sorry for
economy will
him.
lose if the United States actually enforces our immigration laws and deports folks who are here illegally. And I want to quote you now. You say some industries would be particularly hard hit, including construction, agriculture, and hospitality, which can 1.5 million workers. What's the argument here? That there aren't American workers jobs?
No, and as I said previously, are, but the issue is
Wages
decades.
to rise?
I think that we want to pass a path to citizenship so we can have a level and fair playing field for every American.
Why would you want American citizens and those who are here lawfully to have to compete against illegal immigrants who, by the way, are often
I
paid
don't
not
want
minimum
that.
wage, who are not given the federally mandated benefits precisely because they're here illegally? Why would you
know.
want to
I get him
drive
mixed
down
up
the
with Tom
wages of
Cotton. They both
millions
look
of
like
working
really tall,
Americans
dirty
who can't
dirty
get those
Q-tips.
jobs in construction, agriculture, and
He does have
hospitality
little
because
pussy
illegal
lips, yeah.
immigrants are getting them, suppressing wages in the meantime? Why would you want to do that?
Well, if you've been here for my initial testimony, you know
Yeah,
I don't
if you
want.
weren't
Listen,
I
I
want
read your
exploitation
testimony word for
to
word, and
avoid.
I've been watching it, and I know what the answer is.
Really? You've been watching
You don't
from the
actually
potty?
care about working people because you're absolutely hell-bent on this ideological
Wolverine!
agenda of opening our border. You want to give everybody who's here a path to citizenship. You want blanket amnesty. You
he
talk about mass
doesn't.
deportations. That's your word, not Trump's. You want mass amnesty, right?
What?
It's
No,
right
he
here in your
doesn't.
testimony.
I know.
We
Sorry,
want a
Val.
path to citizenship for
That's
people who
amnesty.
pass
Oh, okay. Hold on. Something happened. Something happened. Here we go. Hold on.
Down, way down. What world do you live in?
Hold on. Hold on, everybody.
Here's the deal. The American
familiar
people
with the
just
phrase,
voted.
"Don't
The American
cut off your
people
nose to
just
spite your
voted.
face"?
You know what? It's my time, not yours. So you're here to answer my questions, not to offer a soliloquy. And let me just end with this. The American people just got a good look at your economic program, and they voted against it. We've had an open border for the last 4 years. We have had de facto amnesty, as you yourself just said, for the last 15 plus years. It has been a disaster. People have died because of it. Wages are lower because of it. Our streets are in chaos because of it. And now you and the Democrat Party just say more of the same, more of the same. Let's double down. I would just say to you, I think that's total insanity, and the American people do too.
Senator Hawley, we
My
have a
time,
choice.
not yours. You're here to answer my question. Offer a
What the hell is
soliloquy. Let me
happening?
just
It hurts the economy.
Okay, wait. Hold on. I got to get this one out of
Senator
here.
from
and then
Texas.
Holy shit.
Elections have consequences.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
For the last
What
4
the
years,
fuck?
we have seen the most radical experiment
PBS
in open
is
borders
freaking
this nation has
out.
ever seen.
Oh my
There are many
God,
reasons
shut up,
the American
Drama
people showed
Llama.
up in overwhelming numbers to vote
Shut up,
to
Wolverine.
re-elect Donald Trump, to elect a Republican majority in the Senate, to re-elect a Republican majority in the House, but there was no reason more front and center than the open borders of the last 4 years. And I have to say, I think there were a number of us wondering, did any of the Democrats in Congress learn anything from the election?
Oh my God.
And the existence
You're a
of this
bigger dick
hearing
than we
makes
thought.
very clear the answer is no. We've seen 12 million people come into this country illegally under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. My home state of Texas has seen more than any state in the country. There is a reason that the Rio Grande Valley, which has been Democrat for over 100 years, flipped red this election. Because when your home is invaded by more than 12 million people, it changes your voting patterns.
Oh, stop it.
Every single day,
He talks about votes. He doesn't talk about what is happening for
we have seen
people.
Americans murdered. We have seen women raped. We have seen children brutalized by criminal illegal aliens released deliberately by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The numbers are staggering. According to ICE, as of July 21st, 2024, nearly 650,000 criminal illegal aliens were currently on ICE's non-detained docket, which means they've been released. They're wandering around, they're free. And of those 650,000, 14,944 have been convicted of homicide. You want to know what mass deportation is? Those 14,944 better
All
pack
right,
their
calm
bags
down,
right now.
bitch. Calm the fuck down.
Because with a new administration, we're going to show up, we're going to arrest you, and we are going to deport
How did it
you.
start, Oren? Do you know?
20,061 have been convicted of sexual assault. Now, I want you to ask of
Oh
my
my
Democrat
God.
colleagues, and it is striking
I'm
that virtually
trying
none
to
of them are
be
here.
on Matt's new show.
That is reflected
I
in
want
their
to be
conduct
on Matt's
because they
new
are silent, putting their head in
show.
the sand as to the human tragedies. But what resident of what blue state says, you know what, America's better off with 20,000 rapists being released into this country? 105,146 have been convicted of assault. I would ask my Democrat colleagues if they were here, why the hell today does the Biden administration not go and arrest every one of these criminals and deport them?
Doesn't really matter anymore, but that's okay. Because I'm still really
rational
mad about it. Look at how mad I am. Look at this as my mad
says America's better off with more criminals?
I'm very mad.
And these are not just statistics.
Flip the sign.
Ms. Moran, thank you for being here.
Dramatic pause.
The country grieves the loss of your daughter.
Again.
Your daughter was beautiful.
She was.
She was a mom who I know loved her kids.
I'm sure she was pretty smart.
And she's not with us today. She was raped and murdered because
Because
this
I
administration chose
Keep
to release
somehow
a
wanting
violent
to
criminal
talk
into
about
America.
sexual assault when it comes to. Oh, sorry,
Your daughter
Mrs.
should
Moran.
still
I
be
did
alive.
not mean to blob you.
And every one of these victims should still be alive. Laken Riley, a name that the Democrats on this committee can't bring themselves to utter,
Oh my God.
should still be
The
alive.
fuck up.
And in my
God.
hometown of Houston,
Can we
Jocelyn
trade
Nunley, I've
her
gotten to
for
know
you?
Jocelyn's mother, Alexis, very well.
Is there a
Ms. Moran,
trade
like
somewhere in
you,
here that could be
Alexis
made?
is incredibly brave.
Can we have all
cannot
three of
imagine
those
the
people
pain.
back for you?
I'm a father.
I'm just asking for a friend.
To lose your child, no parent should have to.
Well, actually, your children
their
don't
child.
like you.
Children should bury their parents. Not
Ted
the other
Cruz
way
gets
around.
stats from his podcast. I thought it said pocket at first, and I'm like, yeah,
It
he
is wrong
does.
what happened to you. But I want to say to
Oh my
you,
God,
thank
it's
you for having
horrible.
the courage.
I lived in the East Bay when
tell
they had that
Rachel's
big
story.
Oakland fire, and it scared the fuck out of me.
I would
Or actually, no,
understand
I
if
lived
you
in San
just
Francisco. Actually,
curled up in a ball and cried.
back to work. Bye, Lee. Aw.
But, and I'm sure you have.
I know his kids don't
wept a
like
lot
him.
of
They
tears.
literally don't. And they don't like Trump. They told
thank
their
you
mom
for
to
having
shut
the
up and not
courage
clap for him.
To tell Rachel's story.
Yeah, send him back to Canada. Wolverine, get the
if there
fuck
is
out of here.
anything that
You
is
look
a mandate
stupid.
from this election, it is to end this insanity,
Just get a wig.
stop these murders, stop these rapes, stop
How are you
these
going to do
assaults,
that?
protect
I
our
mean,
citizens.
can you do the other ones too? Then can you do the other ones? Lee,
And
I'll see
Ms.
you
Moran,
later,
I just want to give you the
baby.
opportunity at the end of my
Bye-bye.
questioning to share from your
See you
perspective
tomorrow. I might do some
why
bedtime
this
stories
matters, why
tonight.
we
I
should
don't know.
stop releasing criminals into America.
See what's happening. Yeah, we are not.
In order to prepare for this hearing, I was actually looking at statistics over the last couple of days. And most of the rape and
Well,
murder
did you look at the
statistics
voting
by
statistics?
illegal
Because your
immigrants are actually
87%
against
is
children.
woefully wrong.
And
Yeah.
to me, that's
Can we do something
astounding.
about the
I don't know
clergy
how
rape
many
too?
people here have children or grandchildren,
How about Matt Gaetz?
but can you imagine your 8, 7, 8, 9-year-old daughter being forcibly raped by a stranger?
No, and we
Sometimes
shouldn't.
multiple times. This is the culture, and I realize it's not all immigrants.
Whoa.
But this is the culture that they come from, this kind
What?
of violence. They grow up in it in their countries. To them, it's just part of what they've known for their lives. But to bring that criminal culture into America, it's destroying our families.
Oh my God.
I know of women in my hometown that have come up to me because they know I'm Rachel's mom and say to me,
This woman
"Some
has
guy just ran
experienced
up behind me
incredible
and tried to
trauma in
pull
her
me down
life,
to the
being
ground.
raped and
if it wasn't for
kidnapped
the fact that I
herself.
could fight him off
And she has
run
lost
to a
her
store to call the
precious
police,
daughter
I might
to
not
a
be here.
vile,
And in
vile
one incident,
murder.
that man had attacked 7 other women.
There is no
Why are we
end
allowing
to the
this?
trauma that this
And
poor
then
woman
the women and children
experiences on
that
a
are
daily
raped,
basis.
and because they're so
For the
ashamed
Trump people
of
to
what's
use
happened to
her
them, how they've
as
been
this
so violated,
prop
they don't say anything.
is so
the numbers
disgusting
are
to me.
grossly underestimated, I believe, as far as the crimes that
That's
are
what she
happening in our
said,
country.
oomph.
And I think we need to stop this.
And she even tried to stop herself, but you know what? She
Thank you
just
very much.
couldn't stop herself.
I appreciate all the witnesses appearing before the committee
Jesus
today.
Christ on a cracker.
There are obviously many questions asked about the mass deportation proposal of the president-elect. As I said earlier, I listened carefully at the Meet the Press yesterday, and I believe the
Boy,
magnitude
it's just
of that
ridiculous
statement
to me,
is
and I just
growing,
heard her.
in the mind of the president-elect. Mr. Melnick, you certainly allude to that in terms of the number of personnel and the cost to our nation. Bottom line still is we have no tolerance for keeping dangerous people here who've come to this country and asked to be made citizens.
Including the people who were
And
born here,
certainly
I
have
guess. I mean,
no interest in a policy that allows them to come across the border with impunity.
I know. Let's go to Svalbard. Lee, let's do
Mass
it.
deportation includes not only that possibility of stopping those people, but an impact on Mr. Touré and his family. I think most of us would agree that a man who's given his life to criminal prosecution is of value to us based on what Ms. Moran just mentioned. And I think we should go forward with that in mind. Let's be thoughtful and reflective and do things that make America safer and are consistent with our values.
Okay.
The hearing record.
All right. That was interesting. You know, thank you, Greg, for the shout out on the show. First of all, thank you very much. That's kind of amazing, and I'm kind of going crazy. Let me just say this. I can imagine if I lost a child, especially under any circumstances, but especially under violent circumstances, I would take any opportunity given to me to talk about my child. I would fight so hard for justice for my child and for children like them. So I can totally relate to Mrs. Morin on the level of a mother grieving such incredible loss that it is unfathomable that your child dies before you. It's just end in such a way that is so invasive and unnecessary and violent. But at the same time, I cannot fathom how she is using her platform to advance deeply bigoted views on immigration. And unfortunately, our trauma does not always excuse or make everything we say right. So, hi, Black Bear. I know people like that exist, but words like that still hurt. And that is the point, Black Bear. Our trauma, right? Everyone has certain levels of things that have happened to us or whatever. Our trauma is valid, but our trauma cannot give us permission to hurt and be bigoted. It's just not an excuse. It's not an excuse. That's what therapy is for, right? Therapy helps us work that shit out. That's what it helps us do. Yes, Oren shouting out fire.ca.gov. You can see all the active fires in California. Right now, we've got the Franklin fire from Malibu up in the little screen. And Gal says, and those same mothers are the ones who walk thousands of miles for the small chance that America will give those children an opportunity for safety and love and future. That's right. Those mothers are risking their lives to bring their families to a safer place. And if those opposing that border bill really cared about making substantive change, I read that bill. I wasn't happy with that bill. I thought it was still too strict. But that bill would have provided the answers to a lot of the pearl clutching that is being done. So clearly the pearl clutching is the point. And we know that. So there you go. I don't know. Oh man, I don't know. It's so crazy. And I know it's all just politics really for them. If you want safety for your children, you should understand the lengths mothers will go to protect and provide for their children. That's right. That's right. That's right. Lots of Catholic priests will be deported to their countries. Well, I mean, and what if they're born here? What do we do? Well, let's incarcerate them. How about that? And not just move them to a new parish where they can continue to victimize. You're moving to Skyrim, Iggy? Oh, you know what? I've been playing Baldur's Gate like a motherfucker. Okay, can I tell you? I got to start streaming that because Baldur's Gate is super fun. And I'm not good at it, but it doesn't matter. It's still fun. So I would like to I'm going to go to the Underdark. Because I kind of like it down there. Right now I'm down there and I kind of like it. Even though there's a lot of battles, kind of like it. I kind of dig it. Kind of dig the mushroom people. It's pretty cool. They're pretty cool. Anyway, enough about that gaming. Okay, I would like to read Mr. Greg Olial's Prevail from today. Oh my God, I love it. And I like this. And it's kind of like, I love Greg when he puts out kind of creative thinking pieces around what could be, it's just inspiring. So hopefully, we'll see I don't want to say what it is. Rachel Morin's 5 kids are suing grandma because she took all the GoFundMe money and the kids didn't get any. Are you kidding me, Jim? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? I will need to see a source for that. I'll find a source. All right, here we go. Settle in, kids. I'm going to read you a little story written by Greg Oliar of the Greg Oliar Substack and the wonderful podcast show on Friday nights, the 5-8. That's right. And the 5-8 is, if you aren't familiar, is Greg and Stephanie Koff, who is Lincoln's Bible, such an amazing journalist and researcher and human being, frankly. So those two hosts every Friday night, the 5-8. And, oh yes, forgive me. And Greg also has a Prevail podcast which Gal Suburban has been a guest on. So we love everything that Greg is producing, and never disappointing, never. So, all right. So settle in. Let me read you a little story. All righty. LB is fucking smart. And if you haven't listened to her old podcast, available everywhere you get podcasts, called The World Beneath, is amazing. Amazon. I mean, it's a primer. It's really a primer for organized crime in America. So I really love it. I love it. Yeah, their podcast. That's right. The Prevail podcast comes out on Fridays. Sometimes we listen to it. Anyway, Greg has written some interesting books. Oh, that's right. Rough Beast. Why am I not talking about Rough Beast? That's right. He just published an amazing book called Rough Beast. I bought it. It's so good. So good. We have the best friends. That's what I'm going to say. The smartest, the bestest, the nicest, and the funniest, and the sweetest, and the best creatives. And don't forget Chunk. Don't forget Chunk, who makes those amazing videos, that amazing content. Anyway, okay. All right. Okay. 16. Okay. Dark Brandon Godfather moves. 16 things Biden, Harris, and the Dems can, but would never do in the next 6 weeks to stymie Trump, thwart the rise of U.S. fascism, protect the American people, and safeguard global democracy. Well, no pressure. No. Who's that? Oh, that's the Godfather. I'm like, who's that? Oh, that's Al Pacino. Or whoever that other guy is. No, it's Al Pacino. Is it? Or is it? No. Who's Chunk? Chunk is a part of the 5-8 podcast with Greg and LB. And Chunk creates all the karaoke videos and other graphics for the show. I don't know if he makes other contributions. He's hilarious. If you don't follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky, he's fucking hilarious. So highly recommend following him as well. And I think it's just at Chunk, if I'm not mistaken. He's super funny and talented. Yes. So yeah. Watch the 5. If you don't watch the 5-8, absolutely. And there's a link to the 5-8 in my on my homepage. On my homepage, and a heart of gold. A link on my homepage to the 5-8 show is on my homepage under recommended channels, I think, or something like that. So made me, yeah. Aw. Yeah. So that's a good Friday hangout. All righty, let's read this. Or binge, yes. Yeah. Oh, and RadPod had an amazing guest on this week. Oh my God, the name just went right out of my head. Who's the guest this week? She wrote a book I really love. Oh my God. Why is her name not coming to me? Who was the RadPod guest this week? Why is her name not coming to me? I can see her in my head. No, not Marcy Shore. That was last week. No, the one the interview they're doing this week. Poopy face. I can't remember now. Nancy Lean. She's amazing. All right. Sorry. Thank you. Lisa Grimes. Oh, yeah. McLean. Sorry. McLean. Okay. Sorry. My brain is like fucked up. Nancy McLean. Yeah. Yay. Anyway, I can't wait. I can't wait to watch that. Elmo is now warning Republicans to not get in Trump's way. Oh, lovely. All right, here we go. This is Greg. With just 6 weeks remaining in office and democracy in the United States and possibly the entire world hanging in the balance, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris wasted an entire evening this weekend at an awards ceremony. Granted, the Kennedy Center honors is a big deal, and I'm sure the two leaders enjoyed the rousing ovations they both received. But come on, guys, we're dying over here. The 47th Kennedy Center honors revolved around The Godfather. Democracy in Chains, yeah. I have that book. I have the real book. I didn't even get a digital of it. This was fitting because, first of all, I have been fantasizing since 2017 about the DOJ unleashing a simultaneous mass arrest of all the Trump villains in the manner of the classic Francis Ford Coppola film's climactic baptism scene, where every last piece of the Corleone family business is handled in one fell swoop. And second, because The Godfather ends with the mob boss winning, just like the 2024 election. Conventional wisdom holds that this is the lame duck period, of the Biden presidency, that he is too weak politically to get anything new off the ground. I hear that. But in 2024, this is objectively untrue. Joe Biden is the chief executive for 41 more days, and thanks to the Supreme Court gifting him total immunity for all official acts, he is more, not less powerful than he was when he took office in 2021. As I will explain, there are plenty of things he could still do to stymie Trump, thwart the rise of U.S. fascism, protect the American people, safeguard global democracy, and bring the evildoers to justice. Below are 16 suggestions. Let's begin with 3 action items we have been calling for on these pages since the first time Trump was president. Release the Trump files. As LB has been patiently explaining for these many years, Donald Trump is number 1, a creature of organized crime, number 2, a confidential informant for the FBI, and number 3, a Kremlin asset. The FBI is well aware of numbers 1 and 2. For all we know, Trump appointed Kash Patel as FBI director just to destroy those incriminating files. The intelligence community is well aware of number 3. For all we know, Trump appointed Putin groupie Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence just to destroy those incriminating files. In a preemptive strike, Joe should declassify all of this material and then share it with us. He and Kamala might sit by the fireplace, the same fireplace perhaps where Biden hosted Trump and pretended he was a normal successor, and walk us through the highlights. And don't lecture me about sources and methods. Trump has already, multiple times, delivered classified intelligence to the Russians that directly led to sources being killed. We think, this won't happen again in term number 2? Redact what needs to be redacted, but out with it. Let the American people have no doubt that they elected a mobbed-up Putin puppet. Number 2, ram through legislation gathering dust in the Senate and all stalled nominations. As Lisa Marie Kerr wrote on these pages 4 full fucking years ago, the Vice President of the United States is also President of the Senate. Kamala Harris has enormous power if she chooses to use it. The standing rules of the Senate give its presiding officer abundant power, but they do not require the majority leader to be that presiding officer. Delegation of priority recognition from the Vice President to the majority leader is not required by any written rule of the Senate or by any of its standing orders. As vice presidents took on greater executive duties, they simply began delegating the chair to chosen senators. The Senate's official history acknowledges that this informal practice crystallized into ongoing delegation the majority leader in 1937, thus creating an emperor without clothes. Yeah, can't he he could declassify with his mind. That's a really good point. Delegation of presiding power has become a habit that none question, like cigarette smoking in the 60s. But the malignant cancer of delegation to Mitch McConnell is not required by the Constitution. And I argue that when delegation is chronically abused to block bills from the Senate floor, it is the duty of the Vice President to reclaim her presiding power. Obstructing is not presiding. It is blocking the air from our legislative lungs. Basically, Madam Vice President can waltz in there, seize the gavel from Mitch McConnell. Oh, wait, I forgot. Chuck Schumer is actually still the Senate Majority Leader. Oops, my bad. Blow up the filibuster and demand up and down votes on judicial appointments, stalled legislation, and anything else she damn well pleases. While she's at it, she can read stuff into the record and force a vote on the 14th Amendment, Article 3. See number 10 below. Number 3, sick the IRS on Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, and Brett Kavanaugh. These are excellent ideas, by the way. On these very pages, also 4 full fucking years ago, my man, Moscow Never Sleeps, MNS, laid out a plan to fix the Supreme Court. He focused on the activities of Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, who he writes, quote, has managerial responsibility over PAC money in her various organizations, with alt-right dog whistles like Liberty and Heritage in their names. Maybe she's not raising it or spending it or even getting any of it paid to her. Not actually relevant. Under various lobbying, tax, and corporate laws, as a founder, spokesperson, and or manager of these 501c3 money sponges, she is still potentially personally responsible for how these tax-exempt First Amendment cash machines record and report their finances. I mean, she should be already. What the hell? This should be a no-brainer. Tax-free status is a benefit provided by law, but it requires regular documentary proof that the organization claiming it is legally entitled thereto. Fraud in those documents is a felony, and the person guilty of that felony can be anyone involved in their preparation above a simply clerical level. In the again 4 full fucking years since MNS wrote that, it has been meticulously reported in ProPublica and elsewhere that Clarence Thomas covertly accepted breathtaking sums from Harlan Crow and other, quote, friends. So those Thomas joint tax filings are potentially extra radioactive. The reporting suggests that the same is true of Thomas's fellow traveler and Opus Dei and graft, Sam Alito. As for Brett Kavanaugh, LB and I covered his shady finances on these pages 4 fucking years ago this February. MNS making the argument that Kavanaugh had run afoul of the law with regards to his finances and his sworn statements thereto, had this to say, quote, the Kavanaughs paid $245,000 in a down payment for their house in 2006. According to Judge Kavanaugh's financial disclosures for 2006 and afterwards, he borrowed only approximately $50,000 of that under a down payment loan program available to him as a federal employee. Where did that other almost $200,000 in down payment cash come from? The mortgage payments, principal and interest alone, no property tax or insurance for that house, beginning in 2006, were approximately $55,000 a year. For at least the next 2 years, this was greater than the Kavanaughs took home net of taxes and did not take into account any other housing costs, utilities, automotive costs, tuition, food, clothing, country club membership fees, etc. Other than going into significant debt, how did they afford to pay these bills? What have we done about any of this? Not a goddamn thing. Of course, MNS ends his Clarence Thomas installment thusly, quote, if the Treasury and Justice Departments of the Biden-Harris administration do not do a top-down review of the monetary reporting practices of every PAC from the NRA down to the National Association to Protect Televangelists from Tax and Fraud Laws, then I did not get the president I voted for, and neither did you. Narrator voice. He did not, and we did not. Number 4. Send troops to defend Ukraine. The best way to defeat Putin is to, checks notes, defeat Putin. That means doing everything in our considerable power to help Ukraine kick his bony little behind. There it is. Take a map of Ukraine. Draw a red line from the city of Kherson in the south of the country up the Dnipro River to the city of Dnipro, and from there north to Kharkiv. Send in U.S. troops, Western Coalition NATO troops even better, to defend all of Ukraine west of that line, including Kharkiv, Dnipro, Kherson, Kyiv, Odessa, and the territory around the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia. Make it clear that it is de facto NATO territory. This will free up the Ukrainian army to win back Crimea and the eastern part of the country. If Putin rattles his nuclear sabers, roll in our own weapons to ensure he won't use them. Would this start a war with Russia? What do you mean start? Guys, Russia has been at war with us for at least the last 8 years. Best to acknowledge it and do what we can to win, because the stakes could not be higher. As Molly McHugh writes in Great Power, quote, there is no future for democracy or any of our democracies if we are not willing to hold Russians accountable for their illegal war of aggression in Ukraine, which is based on genocidal intentions, and do it for as long as it takes. Either we put Russia on trial in a generational justice initiative for all the war crimes they have committed in Ukraine since February 2022, and maybe before, and use this as a vehicle to document the century of crimes for which Moscow will never stand trial. Or we admit that we are too tired to defend the rules-based order any longer and accept the century of chaotic nonlinearism that will come. And don't lecture me about escalation. Instead, ask the residents of Kherson or Mariupol for their thoughts on the subject. Taking military action now would make it almost impossible politically for Trump to withdraw troops come January. And, best case scenario, the Ukrainians win the war in the next 5 weeks. That's entirely possible given that Putin's vaunted army is either dead or in quagmire in the Donbass, leaving the vast expanse of Russia undefended. Here's the thing. The only way to win the war with Russia is to, fight the war with Russia. Yes, but we're pardoning turkeys. But fear not, ye pacifists. There is a greater chance of Dark Brandon flying to Ukraine like Superman and laying waste to the Russian army with Cyclops death rays coming from out of his eyes than for Biden to commit U.S. troops this late in the game. Tell us, number 5, tell us what was in the top secret documents that Trump stole. I just feel like transparency is going to help. I don't know. I don't know why I feel that so strongly. Since we're not going to get the trial Jack Smith worked so hard to bring about, we should at least get to see the evidence. This needs to be a fireside chat, or better, a slickly produced video special that interrupts programming on every network. Instead, assuming we see the report at all, it will be in the form of a luminous and heavily redacted ream of paper that Merrick Garland will release the Friday before inauguration, that Trump will call fake news, and that no one will bother to read. Speaking of which, number 6, fire Merrick Garland. Let's audible to a sports analogy. Fear and favor and football. With Garland behind center, we have endured some of the worst quarterback play in recent memory. Get Lisa Monaco throwing on the sidelines. Enough Kirk Cousins. Let's see what we have in Michael Penix. Is that really his name? I'm so sorry. I don't mean to laugh at that. And it's a perfectly great name. I'm sorry to the Penix family. Too little, too late, I realize. But if nothing else, pulling the AG now gives the stadium crowd one last chance to boo him mercilessly. Oh, exposed Trump-Russia election fuckery. On December 20th, the director of National Intelligence. Where is that report? On December 20th, the Director of National Intelligence will deliver unto Biden, per Trump's Executive Order 13848, a report on foreign interference in the 2024 election. Spoiler alert, Russia interfered or tried its damnedest to interfere in the 2024 election. We know this because A, Russia engaged in election fuckery in 2020 and 2016, and B, the stakes for Putin this time around are so high as to be existential. Oh, and we traced all the bomb calls back to a Russian whatever. Come on. That's right. It's them. As Christopher Steele writes in Unredacted, Russia, Trump, and the Fight for Democracy, the 2024 election, quote, represented Putin's best and probably only shot at saving his regime and likely his life. As a result, he will be doing all he can to get a Republican isolationist elected to the White House again. It is sometimes easy to forget that Putin helped Trump become president before in 2016, as the report by special counsel Robert Mueller made clear. And in 2016, the stakes for Putin were much lower. He is now desperate to have Trump back in the White House. And just a side note, we in the space last night when Brent Allpress came and spoke. If you have not listened to the space from last night on Twitter, I would listen to the recording. It's in my profile. Because it was a great space, and Brent Allpress came in at the end and talked about his thoughts around certain issues, and of course it was brilliant, and I highly recommend catching the end of that space when Brent was on, about last like 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. Really, really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. And one of the points he brought up was that Putin does not want a highly functioning authoritarian regime in the United States. That does not serve Putin. He needs the regime to be despotic but not organized, because the chaos is what works for Putin in raising Russia up as a world power. And it was like, lights going on in my little high brain. I would really, really, yes, he exposed Cambridge Analytica. He was in the movie we watched in Discord last week. People you may know. He's brilliant. He's a journalist. He's a researcher. He's a documentarian. He is just really amazing. And he's been interviewed by RadPod before, so you could find a past interview with Brent. He's from New Zealand. He lives in Australia, but he's originally from New Zealand, so he really speaks very passionately about New Zealand politics and the rise of kind of the corporate talk, the kleptocracy that's happening in New Zealand, and his concern for that country, which was on such a positive arc, or at least addressing some of their, or having a healthier society, I guess, still with issues with the Maori and having rights and established. And now they are really, there's apparently a lot of corporate takeover within New Zealand and purchasing of politicians. So, yeah, it is very sad. So I want to catch up on the New Zealand. I've been tracking some of the Maori concern with their treaty with New Zealand. And so I'm interested in learning more about that. But Brent is a brilliant person. I do have a little crush on him, but that's not the point. He is a brilliant person and a great friend in terms of, so lucky to have him just come in and share wisdom. I was really, really grateful for that. So anyway, love Brent. Yeah, I know. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I love smart guys. I love smart guys. And he that whole Cambridge Analytica stuff, is fucking heroic to me. I'm sorry. It's fucking heroic. So anyway, all right. Enough of that. Enough of my fangirling. All right, here we go. Just the purchase of Twitter by a traitorous Putin-fluffing South African Nazi-loving Nepo baby in frequent communication with the Russian strongman is its rebranding as a single letter that is halfway to a swastika, and its repurposing as a safe space for Nazis, MAGA, and Nazi MAGA. Just that comprises, all by itself, appearance. Let's see. The artificial amplification of right-wing podcasts and YouTube shows via tenant media, right, was also Kremlin interference. Ditto. The fake bomb threats made to all those 40 bomb threats received at polling places in all those swing states on election day. That's just the stuff we know about. What did Trump discuss with Putin in Helsinki? The translator knows. The NSA, as well as allied intelligence services, also likely know. How about those 7 calls to Citizen Donald made to the Kremlin leader Bob Woodward told us about? Enough MAGA gaslighting. Spill it, Joe. Yeah. Number 8. Deny Trump intelligence briefings. Oh, my God. Is there a constitutional amendment that says we are legally obligated to feed classified intelligence to a disgusting traitor who will forward said intelligence directly to his whore masters in the Kremlin? No? Then maybe stop doing that. Charge Elon Musk, number 9, with violating the Logan Act. Jesus. I don't think they gave up on it. Yeah, maybe. Just so you know, this pudgy, pasty, creepy, eugenics-loving, fake cowboy apartheid Bond villain whose 63 kids all hate his guts. Who received 0 electoral votes and who talks to Putin and Xi and MBS on the regular is going to be our shadow president. This is catastrophic. Musk and his broligarchs are literally planning to boost the gold out of Fort Knox, y'all. That's not economic policy. It's a Goldfinger reboot. Indict this fraudulent motherfucker. Publish the transcripts of his hotline bling with Putin. Cancel his government contracts and send his flabby ass back to Joburg. I love you, Craig. God, this is among great, this is another one of his best. Number 10, bring up a bill in the Senate to offer Trump amnesty. Oh, as an insurrectionist, Donald Trump is ineligible to take office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment unless Congress grants him amnesty. Until that happens, he cannot be sworn in as POTUS. That is the law of the land. As the columnist and podcaster Caitlin Bird helpfully points out, quote, first, the court was presented an argument for innocence in the Trump v. Anderson case where they made up their very terrible rules. Trump's lawyers argued that Section 3 does not apply. The court did not even touch it. The key aspect of the entire decision, in fact, supports the idea that Section 3 is valid and does apply, and as such, states cannot implement any efforts to enforce it. That's for Congress alone to determine. So my suggestion is that Congress already determined that Trump was an insurrectionist disqualified from the ballot via impeachment. She continues. None of the defenses offered for the not guilty votes were that Donald Trump was innocent. There was the fact that he was no longer in office. There were questions about the constitutionality of the Senate trial. There were calls for him to face criminal charges instead of political ones. There were people who said that the trial was a distraction from important pandemic response. But every single Republican senator agreed that the events of January 6 were an insurrection. The only question was whether they would or could hold Trump accountable for it. So, with that established, Democrats in the Senate now should take advantage of their slim majority and bring up a bill to offer Trump amnesty, saying that it is necessary for Trump to be inaugurated. January 6 and his rejection of the peaceful transfer of power has never been properly handled by the system, and it needs to be cleared before we, collectively, let him take the oath again, especially since he demonstrates he has every intention of breaking it. The Senate Democrats need to stop Chuck Schumering already and make this happen. Do exactly what Byrd suggests. There's absolutely nothing to lose other than, American democracy. 11. Pardon everyone on the MAGA hit list. Both crazy-eyed Kash Patel, Trump's choice to head the FBI, and self-styled Secretary of Retribution Ivan Just the Tip Raiklan. Oh, I added that. Mike Flynn's wingless flying monkey have compiled hit lists of prominent people the incoming administration plans to have the MAGA feds go after. On those lists are, among many other people, Biden, Harris, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, and anyone else of prominence who dared to attempt to bring convicted felon Donald Trump to justice, or whose jib Patel and Raiklan don't like the cut of. Oh, or people like Jim Stewartson, who Kash Patel is suing because Jim called him a chud. What could go wrong? As anyone who consumed any legacy media in the last couple of weeks well knows, because these MSM stunads, I don't even know what that is, but I can't even imagine, can't resist promoting false equivalencies about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden issued his kid a broad pardon. He also pardoned a turkey for some reason. He needs to do the same for every person on these hit lists. Note, I was skeptical that accepting a preemptive pardon required admitting guilt, but Lawrence Tribe, the nation's foremost constitutional legal scholar, seems to think it doesn't. Number 12, safeguard the civil service. Trump plans to impose Schedule F, which is the legal mechanism by which he can pink slip tens of thousands of federal employees and either eliminate those jobs entirely or fill them with unqualified MAGA sycophants. Biden needs to step up guardrails to protect those career civil servants. I'm not well versed enough in the legal machinations to know what Joe might do, but if Trump can implement a legal mechanism to do this, it follows that Biden can implement a preemptive legal mechanism to prevent it from happening. There's a city full of policy wonks on the Potomac. Figure it out. Number 13, refuse to certify the vote. This one scares me. MAGA has been insisting for 4 years that the VP has the ability to refuse to certify the results of the presidential election. Great. Kamala Harris should do just that. Or, if she doesn't want to go that far, just don't show up to work that day. Call in sick. Say you have COVID. Resign in disgust. Ghost. Just don't give these bullies the satisfaction of watching you humiliate yourself by handing over the White House to a rapist traitor. 14. Decline Trump's request for Lincoln's Bible. Trump put his short fingers on a Bible belonging to Abraham Lincoln at his first inauguration. It was this sacrilege, this desecration, that inspired my friend Stephanie Koff to use Lincoln's Bible as her Twitter handle. Donald will likely ask again to borrow Abe's good book. Tell the traitor no effing way, and that he should use one of the Trump-branded copies he had printed in China instead. Number 15, refuse to swear him in. John Roberts could do this, citing the aforementioned 14th Amendment, Section 3. We're more likely to see the Chief Justice molt, discard his robe and his human skin, and get beamed up to one of those drones over New Jersey than do something this ballsy and patriotic and right. But he could, and he should. What is going on with Kash Patel's eyes? He had him, I think he had him done. No, I don't know. He just likes being creepy, and I don't know. Number 16, boycott the inauguration. You'd have to strap me down and force open my eyelids like Malcolm McDowell in A Clockwork Orange to get me to watch even 30 seconds of Trump's second inauguration. Not least because I can't bear to see Joe Biden, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris smiling and nodding as a slurring Donald promises more American carnage. If it gets this far, they should all make like it's the 1980 Moscow Summer Games and boycott. After all, if it gets this far, President Biden will already have stopped doing his job. He may as well punch out early and go home. So you see, there are plenty of things Joe Biden could still do to stymie Trump, thwart the rise of U.S. fascism, protect the American people, safeguard global democracy, and bring the evildoers to justice. Will he do any of these things? Not a chance. At most, he'll hand out pardons like Rick Nielsen throwing guitar picks into the crowd at a Cheap Trick concert. The rest of this stuff, not happening. I'd love to be wrong, believe me, but from the looks of things, Biden has already waved the white flag. He'll leave quietly without a fight, like Sally Tessio at the end of The Godfather, and we'll never hear from Dark Brandon again. That is an excellent column. Yikes. Stunad. What's a stunad? Wait, did my wonderful friend Oomph define stunad for me? Let me get this out of here. Oh. Biden's making remarks.
Companies are coming back to America, investing and building here and creating jobs here in America, in my view, where they belong. And of course, this economic growth is not without pain. The entire world faced a spike in inflation due to disruptions from the pandemic and Putin's war in Ukraine. We acted quickly to get inflation down with the help of Republicans and Democrats. Inflation came down to pre-pandemic levels. Wages have increased, but still too many working and middle-class families struggle with high prices for housing and groceries and the daily needs of life.
Oh, thank you, Iguana-san, stunad. Italian slang for a stupid person. Oh, okay.
With the outcome of this election, we also face an inflection point. We do
usually oomph comes in and
we continue to grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, investing in all of America and Americans,
provides the
supporting unions and working families. As we have the past 4 years, do we move backward? In my view, backslide to an economy that's benefited those at the top while working people in the middle class struggle for a fair share of growth.
A little bit of chaos in the Tartus. The Russian Navy warships anchored in open waters outside their home port in Tartus stirs the chaos surrounding the Assad collapse.
Corporate America.
Russian warships forced to anchor offshore.
The
Reuters.
Every other state in the union. So I'm mildly accustomed to corporate America.
I think that's a great idea, Jane.
Helpful and necessary.
I can send it to Schiff, too.
To make the most of the opportunities ahead of, I want to share key pages from our middle-out, bottom-up economic playbook and lay down what I believe to be a new set of benchmarks to measure against the next 4 years and see whether this theory is more than just
the wrong one.
4 years ago, when I came to office, 3,000 Americans were dying per day from the pandemic that infected and then had a profound effect on our economy. Not only ours, but around the world. Millions of Americans lost their jobs or at risk of losing their homes. Hundreds of thousands of factories and businesses, hundreds of thousands, closed and creating despair in communities. I remember when I was campaigning, they'd say, my dad used to work at that factory. My grandfather works at that factory. It's gone. People lost hope. They lost hope, particularly through the Midwest and other areas of the country. Supply chains was shattered. Prices soared in everything from cars to homes to appliances. The previous administration, quite frankly, had no real plan to get us through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history. In fact, there's an old saying, if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Over the course of decades, Republican leadership, and I'm not those of you who know anything about me and my career in the Senate, I had as many Republican friends as Democratic friends, for real. I'm not one of these, anyway, I won't get going. But I've never been a big fan of trickle-down economics. It was a hammer that was hammering working people. My dad used to say, my dad was a well-read man who he got accepted to go to Hopkins, but during the war he never got to go. But my dad used to talk about it. He said, Dad, Joey, not a whole lot trickles down on my kitchen table at the end of the month. Slashing taxes for the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, diminishing public investment in infrastructure, in education, in research and development. And keep your eye on it. We're going to find out whether or not what they want to do on these.
He's reminding us of what we're kind of losing. Oh, really?
Offshore jobs and factories took off for cheaper labor overseas, destroying unions while imposing costs on those products made in America. And despite the mythical reputation to pay for itself, trickle-down economics deeply worsened our fiscal outlook, in my view. To offset the cost, advocates of trickle-down economics ripped the social safety net by trying to privatize Social Security and Medicare, trying to deny access to affordable health care and prescription drugs, lifting the fortunes of the very wealthy, often meant taking the rights of workers away to unionize and bargain collectively. And by the way, I'm all for the very wealthy. I'm not joking. You can make as much money as you can, good for you. But everybody's got to pay their fair share. It may rewarding short-termism in pursuit of short-term profits, extraordinary high executive pay, instead of making long-term investments in many cases. As a consequence, our infrastructure
He is really
fell
in the
further
norm.
behind. A flood of cheap imports hollowed out our factory towns. Remember Infrastructure Week? We had Infrastructure Week for 4 years, and nothing got built.
Because I can just
Everybody
imagine
said
that they're
when I
all
wanted to have an
like
infrastructure
really
bill that mattered over
voting in the
$1
interest of
$300
humanity.
billion. We'd never get it done. We got it done. Next president has a game plan I laid out, and by the way, he's
I'm
going
going to be honest. I'm exactly where you're at, Iggy. I was ride or die for him because of what he had accomplished. But it is shitting on all of that to not be transparent about concerns that he has. I'm sorry. I just.
Economic opportunity and innovation became more concentrated in few
I
major
can't.
cities.
I'm sorry. We're done. Sorry. Sorry, Joe. I can't do this with you. I cannot do this with you. Sorry. Nothing is normal. Your trickle down doesn't matter. Your trickle down is over. Your trickle up, I mean. I'm looking for the FJB stickers now. No, I know how you love the very wealthy. What the fuck is that? Stop it. Oh my God. This is like a hot dog. Where's my hot dogs? Here it is. That's what I'm feeling right now. God damn it. Stop it already. Stop it. To read what Greg wrote and then to see him talk about trickle down economics and how it doesn't work. Sorry, that's what I'm feeling. I'm sorry. I know it's gross. I'm sorry. Newsom said something like, "We will know soon what happened." Okay, good. Because I was wondering well, I used to be sentimental about them, but like, yeah. I think I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Fantasy lands. Fantasy lands. You think he's going to hand over to me America? Is he really going to hand Trump the country? Isn't that against the I don't think they feel that way. That's why I think it's interesting what Greg said about the 14th Amendment. I know Snowden, our friend, is so passionate about that issue. I don't understand all the ins and outs, so I hesitate, but at the same time, I'm encouraged. If there is a mechanism by which, and it fits within the Constitution, like I want it to be by the rules, right? If by the rules, this is accurate that we should not be even seating him, then fuck, let's do it. Like, I don't understand the drama. I mean, I understand the drama, and maybe that's what their calculations are, is like some kind of civil war concern. I'm going to remind everybody that the Chuds drove across the country 3 times and ended up imploding because they couldn't handle it. Okay, so yes, there are definitely militias, but I'm going to tell you the preponderance of Chuds are on Kratom. But yeah. But like, if it's going to happen already, have happened, because this law shit takes too long. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anybody actually at this point, because everything is true. It'll incite a civil war, and would it be the right thing to do? And should we not do the right thing? I don't know. Kratom's a drug, yeah. Lots of Chuds take it, or at least that's what I hear. I don't know. And right now, the military is still worth having on our side. They won't help the chuds. That's right. Radicalization is bad in any, I think radicalization is pretty bad in any context. I can't think of a context where radicalizing someone to adhere to a set of beliefs because you've influenced them. I don't know. There's something, I mean, I understand that that's just the way it works too, but to become radicalized to me, kind of implies a more violent and uncompromising in terms of bigotry and other things. So that's where I kind of, maybe radicalizing needs to be defined a little bit better. Yeah, Paul J. Yeah, no, and I'm not dismissing the use of kratom. Forgive me. I'm just saying that it is popular among the chud population as a drug of choice. But you could replace that with any drug that that people would take. So, but it will only get worse if we don't stop it. Glad to hear about the military. Yeah, they're radicalized against their own country. Yeah, yeah. No, Paul J. It's not the drug itself is not exclusively class based. I want to say that it just happens to be popular among a certain class, if that makes sense. I think it's like I don't know. Is it like a leaf or something? I really don't know actually. I haven't really delved into that world. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I don't want to offend anyone. I'm not trying to forgive me for making kind of what are kind of classist. I help to people come off opioids. Yeah, I think there is a lot of uses for it. And again, it's not just chuds, but boy, I don't know why they dig it so much. Is it cheap? I don't even know. Is that what it is? Is it cheap? It's an herb from like Thailand refined. Oh, the Thailand region. How do they get? Oh, never mind. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. All right, let me see. Here we go. I have a little something to leave you with. I'm going to read one more thing. Is insane. Wait, region. How? Never mind. I just feel like active military can get busted out for weed and Elon is dope to the gills. Right? Right? A plant helps with pain, energy, anxiety, mood. Right. Quasi-legal, sold at gas stations. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, so it's kind of easy to get too. Well, that probably makes sense then. All right, we talked about this last night. This is old news, but it is interesting in light of the fact that there will be a DNI report about, this is from the National, this is a document, from March of 2021. You get yours online in bulk. That makes sense. National Intelligence Council report, the assessment, foreign threats to the 2020 U.S. federal elections. This is the report that is required by Executive Order 13848 to be delivered in December of the year before an incoming president. And it is a report that is required in order to, institute other measures to protect against fraudulent elections, right? So this was the report for the 2020 election. Oh, that's awesome, Paul. That's fucking awesome. Well, there you go. I mean, things can be really incredibly useful and helpful. That's amazing, actually. That's kind of amazing that it helps you quit such a strong drug. That's crazy. Yes, hooray for harm reduction. Fuck yeah. That's what we should be focusing on. Okay. This is fairly short. Oh, there you go. There you go. Herbal remedies got me off. That's amazing, you guys. Well, there you go. I learned something new. I didn't realize it was used for that purpose. That's amazing. That's good news. Oh, you did? Oh, baby. Oh, Oren. I love you, girl. Foreign threats to the 2020 U.S. federal elections. I'll probably make it bigger. Can I? Oh, here we go. Whoa. Wow, Luigi. Oh, no, that's too big. That's a better. So are the chuds former meth users? I imagine some of them are. I think some of them have said they are. I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's across the board, but you have with your coffee and withdrawal is mild. That's really good. I had no idea they were going to storm the Capitol, and I felt like my brain was in a box of balls, cotton balls with pain meds. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing, Oren. That's pretty amazing. This document is a declassified version of a classified report. The analytic judgments outlined here are identical to those in the classified version, but this declassified document does not include the full supporting information and does not discuss specific intelligence, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah. Oh, this page is blank. This page isn't. Background, this document is a declassified, okay, blah, 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 that the intelligence community provided to the president, senior executive branch officials, and congressional leadership and intelligence oversight committees on 7 of January, 2021. Oh, interesting. This is the report that was delayed. Remember? This is the report that was delayed. That was supposed to be there by the 18th of December, and it wasn't. And it looks like it was delivered on January 7th instead. Isn't that interesting timing? More used to get off of opiates than meth. Yeah. Well, it seems like opiates are a little more widespread usage too, right? I would imagine. Yeah. Okay, where am I? The intelligence community rarely can publicly reveal the full extent of its knowledge or the specific information on which it bases its analytic conclusions, as doing so could endanger sensitive sources and methods and imperil the intelligence community's ability to collect critical foreign intelligence. Weed is an opiate. Oh, well, there you go. I don't know. What do I know? I just smoke it. The analytic judgments outlined below are identical to those in the classified version, but this declassified document does not include the full supporting information and does not discuss specific reports, sources, or methods. Scope note, this ICA, Intelligence Community Assessment, as required by EO 13848, addresses key foreign actors' intentions and efforts to influence or interfere with the 2020 U.S. federal elections or to undermine the U.S. public confidence in the U.S. election process. It builds on analysis published throughout the election cycle and provided to executive branch and congressional leaders. This ICA does not include an assessment of the impact foreign malign influence and interference activities may have had on the outcome of the 2020 election. Huh? The U.S. intelligence community is charged with monitoring and assessing the intentions, capabilities, and actions of foreign actors. It does not analyze U.S. political processes or actors, election administration, or vote tabulation processes or public opinion. What? Doesn't that seem like a weird paragraph? Oh, yeah, Oren, that's a really good point. You have to be so careful about drug interactions. Please, everyone, you have to consult with a medical professional. When you're on any kind of prescription meds and you're thinking of introducing something else into it, I talked to my doctor. That's how I got into like marijuana. I hadn't been smoking it for years until my arthritis got so bad and I was no longer working around children. So that's when I turned to medical marijuana, and I love it, and I'm retired now, so I'm like, I like to smoke. And it does help keep off the pain that I do have. So I think it is, but it is imperative that you speak with your doctors about drug interactions. It's just too dangerous not to. I've seen it happen too many times. We just don't know. If you aren't taking opiates, it should be okay if it hits some of those receptors. Yep. 100%. My aunt tried giving me one of those herbal things that interacts with antidepressants. I know, it's just there's too much this day, and you don't know what's in everything. Like, come on, that's just so hard. I know it's hard, but be safe. Okay, pursuant to EO 13848, after receiving this assessment, the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security. I don't want to talk to you. My old insurance company. Pursuant to EO 13848, after receiving this assessment, the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the heads of any other appropriate federal, state, or local agencies, will evaluate the impact of any foreign efforts on. So we're just giving you the information. We're not going to analyze it. That's a problem with Kratom. They are advertising it all over, and it has interactions. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. I was mean about it and said, if you're going to get someone hurt, you keep recommending this stuff to people who you don't know what meds they're on. I know. And I understand that the intention is there to help, but it's too tricky these days. It's just too tricky. Let's see. Pursuant to EO 13, after reviewing this assessment and the report required by the executive order, the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State, Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, will impose appropriate sanctions for activities determined. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're not going to go through the definitions. Oh, wait, maybe we will. For the purpose of this assessment, election influence includes overt and covert acts by foreign governments and actors acting as agents of or on behalf of foreign governments intended to affect directly or indirectly a U.S. election. Well, then why aren't you talking to Elmo, including candidates, political parties, voters, or their preferences or political processes? Election interference is a subset of election influence activities targeted at the technical aspects of the election, including voter registration, casting, and counting ballots or reporting results. It's not a very good party drug. Key judgment 1. We have no indications that any foreign actor attempted to alter any technical aspect of the voting process in the 2020 elections, including voter registration, casting ballots, vote tabulation, or reporting results. We assess that it would be difficult for a foreign actor to manipulate election processes at scale without detection by intelligence collection on the actors themselves. And yet we just voted in the people who claimed that that was the truth. Wow. Through physical and cybersecurity monitoring around voting systems around the country or in post-election audits. The IC identified some successful compromises of state and local government networks prior to Election Day, which would include Tina Peters in Mesa, Colorado. Well, she's after the fact, but anyway. That's true. She's after the fact. Sorry. But that we assess, as well as a higher volume of unsuccessful attempts that we assess were not directed at altering election processes. Some foreign actors, such as Iran and Russia, spread false or inflated claims about alleged compromises of voting systems to undermine public confidence in election processes and results. Boy, that sentence is doing a lot. That's a pretty fucking heavy sentence right there. Some foreign actors, such as Iran or Russia, spread false or inflated claims. This is disinformation, folks. Disinformation is a key reason that we are here, and we have not acknowledged that. I'm sorry. Everybody keeps talking about the Dems missed this. The inflation was that. The price of eggs was X. Yeah, okay, yes, and. But you know what else? You know why people were so disturbed about the price of eggs? It was also disinformation. It was disinformation about the entire supply chain, about what happens in a post-pandemic world, about the fact that this economy and the way that we were able to recover was stronger than any of the other G7 nations. And meanwhile, $35 insulin for seniors and disabled people. Chips manufactured in the United States so that when the next pandemic comes, not if, when, we will have capabilities to build things like ventilators that we didn't have in the original pandemic that we just experienced. And perhaps the things that we have to buy after the pandemic that include those chips may be slightly more affordable. Maybe. So if we don't deal with disinformation in this country as a key issue, not a sideline, we have to deal with the pipeline of shit that is feeding this disinformation on a daily basis to people. And we can't make a joke out of it anymore. Key judgment 2. We assess that Russian President Putin authorized and a range of Russian government organizations conducted influence operations aimed at denigrating President Biden's candidacy and the Democratic Party, supporting former President Trump, undermining public confidence in the electoral process, and exacerbating socio-political divisions in the U.S. Unlike in 2016, we did not see persistent Russian cyber efforts to gain access to election infrastructure. Well, they didn't need to. They had Doug Frank. No, I'm just kidding. They didn't. He didn't do it till after. We have high confidence in our assessment. They have it now, by the way, in case you don't know. The Russians would have voting equipment machine plans now because Patrick Byrne, Mike Flynn, Mike Lindell, Doug Frank, Ron Watkins, Corey the surfer butthole dude, and a host of other idiots went around the country after the 2020 election and convinced stupid little county clerks that they needed to give their tree to them because there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it back to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back here. That's what happened across the country. So guess what? Everybody has a copy of a machine now. Tina Peters. And Tina Peters, her bony ass is sitting in a fucking prison cell right now for all those douche whistles. Oh my God. I'm not a bitch. I'm just smart. Pay attention. Not you guys. You guys are already paying attention. Okay, I got to keep an eye on the time. Oh, you know what? Actually, I probably have to wrap this. I'm going to wrap this for now, but we're going to come back to this document. I'm a bitch and I'm smart, okay? Well, maybe I am a bitch. But only because I am fighting for the rights of others. I swear to God. And maybe sometimes it's chemical, okay? I get it. Sometimes it's just fucking chemical. Okay? That's it, man. Beach, please. You're so welcome, Teresa. Thank you. Thank you, Greg Olear, for writing such brilliant words for me to read. I really appreciate that. Media literacy. Media fucking literacy. It's important. It's important. All right. I love you guys. Chin up. It's going to be okay. I don't know how, but it's going to be okay. All right. I promise yous. And we'll be together while we're going through it. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gal, for your amazing links. Really appreciate you. Love you so much. Love to Don't Go to the Show Bye. Who I wish she was here, man. She'd have shit to say. Anyway. All right, guys. I'll see you later. I'll see you tomorrow morning. And then we have a big day tomorrow because we're piloting the new show, Still Baked. Still Baked. We're having a Wake and Bake tomorrow and later in the afternoon. Oh, yeah, it's double duty, babies. We're going to have a Still Baked in the afternoon. All right? All right. 36 grandchildren. Wow. Oh, people have babies a lot. Our family doesn't have that many grandchildren. In fact, I don't. Well, anyway. Okay. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Have a great Tuesday.